Chapter 1698. He knew from when Shuyue that the situation of desolation was not good. However, when he saw this scene, Fang Qingshan still found it hard to accept. It was not that his mental fortitude was poor, but he did not expect the changes to be so drastic in just a few years. Fortunately, desolation was worthy of being called desolation. Although this chaotic world had just been born, it had great potential and would become stronger when facing strong opponents. When Fang Qingshan left, Hong Jun, who was the strongest in desolation, had not broken through to the immortal realm. Now, they were not far from becoming divine emperors. They were not any worse than Yang Mei, who had joined the Dao sect. Of course, they might not be willing to do this if they had a choice. However, it was also because they had no choice that they were able to push themselves to the brink of death and fully stimulate their potential. Looking at the scene on the battlefield, what made him depressed was that it was a slaughterhouse that was like a meat grinder. Blood rain, wind, mountains of corpses, sea of bones, ghostly cries, and wolf howls. There were people dying at every moment. Grand heavenly immortals, sage-to-be, and mixed-origin saints were no exception. As long as they were on the battlefield, there was a possibility that they would die. Not to mention the weak, but the strong. As long as they were not strong enough to defend against 10,000 enemies, they would be targeted and die of exhaustion. Of course, most of the people who died were from desolation. For every person from Lifeless Demon Palace that died, there would be 100, 1,000, or even more people dying. This cannot be helped. Even the weakest disciple from Lifeless Demon Palace had the strength of a sage-to-be. In the past, there were not many people with such strength, even in the three religions of Dao. What made Fang Qingshan happy was that even in the face of such a battlefield, even in the face of death, where people were falling like dumplings, not a single one of them was afraid. Not a single one of them retreated. Every single one of them was roaring in anger and fighting with all their might to kill their enemies. Moreover, although they had paid a heavy price, the harvest was not small. From time to time, one could see someone's aura suddenly rising. It was either corpse decapitation or Dao validation. This was probably the ray of hope that everyone saw in the midst of despair. It was the spiritual pillar that allowed them to persevere. Patriarch, let's return to the Blood Sea and come up with a plan. Just as Fang Qingshan's gloominess was condensing and he was feeling happy, when Shuyue felt a burst of pressure and hurriedly asked, no matter how beautiful the scenery was, it would only be the same after seeing it many times. Although the hardships were terrifying, they would no longer be afraid after experiencing it many times. For one Shuyue, the scene in front of him was frightening at first glance. However, it was just an ordinary scene. After all, she was someone who had walked out of this battlefield. As members of the Azura clan, they and the Wu people were known as the two great fighting clans of desolation. They had been a main force on the battlefield from the very beginning, fighting the heavens and fighting the earth without fear. At that time, when Shuyue, who was still a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal, returned from the battlefield. Fortunately, she survived. It was also because of this experience that she broke through to the late stage of Sage-to-Be in a short time. Furthermore, if he wanted to enter the primal chaos, he would have to pass through this battlefield. Therefore, for her, the scene in front of her was nothing more than a common occurrence. She couldn't help but lament about it. Moreover, for her, the most important thing now was to lure the Patriarch back to the Blood Sea and discuss countermeasures. Whether to fight or to retreat was related to the survival of the Blood Sea. This was the top priority. No need. Since I'm back, I naturally won't allow them to kill people of desolation under my nose, not to mention the disciples of my Azura Blood Sea lineage. Fang Qingshan waved his hand and said resolutely. Upon hearing this, when Shuyue opened his mouth, but no words came out, she wanted to say that this was not the key. Their sacrifice was worth it. The most important thing now was to discuss countermeasures with the Azura Sovereign, Hutu, Hongjun, and the others. She didn't want to alarm the Extermination Demon Venerable and the Lifeless Demon Palace. However, she swallowed her words when they were at the tip of her tongue. It was obvious that she looked down on the patriarch. Wasn't this a slap in the face to Fang Qingshan? Therefore, when Yue was very confused. However, this confusion only lasted for a moment. Then, she widened her eyes and opened her mouth, dumbfounded. Go kill them. As soon as he finished speaking, Fang Qingshan waved his hand and took out the timeless Arkansas. Of course, he didn't want to use the timeless Arkansas. With his current cultivation, he didn't need to use the timeless arc even if the extermination demon venerable was in front of him, let alone these people who weren't even divine emperors. It was like using a cannon to kill a mosquito, making a mountain out of a molehill. What he wanted to do was naturally to release the timeless arc and the Dao soldiers in each unit. As for why Fang Qingshan didn't take action immediately, it was because the autumn wind swept away the fallen leaves and cut the Gordian knot. First, it was because the people of lifeless Demon Palace and the people of Desolation were mixed together. If Fang Qingshan used a big move, it would easily hurt the innocent. Moreover, with his current cultivation and status, if he took action personally, it would not only be bullying the weak, but it would also be a waste of his talent. As the saying goes, when a master has something to do, the disciple will do it for him. Although he didn't have any disciples, he still had a group of subordinates. Boom! Boom! A storm was brewing. The timeless arc hadn't appeared yet, but a murderous aura spread in all directions, as if it wanted to penetrate the sky and sweep the starry sky. Soon after, deafening sounds rose into the air. Suddenly, the air distorted and the world trembled. A gigantic heavenly arc broke through the air with a bang and appeared out of thin air. The timeless arc was vast and boundless. At first glance, it was enough to make people unable to raise the slightest resistance. Around it, there were hundreds of millions of creatures praying piously. The power of faith integrated into the timeless arc, subtly enhancing the power of the timeless Arkansas. It was refining the main body of the timeless Arkansas. The moment the entire timeless arc appeared, it was as if it had completely bared its fangs and awakened from a deep slumber. Whoosh! On the timeless Arkansas, the sails danced, emitting bursts of divine light. Dong, dong, dong. Then, the 10,000 beast formation breaking drum was beaten. Every beat was like the 9 heavens' thunder. It was as if the sound of metal spears and killing could be heard on the battlefield. A smear of blood flashed across the sky. It seemed to indicate that the road ahead would bring blood and killing. Every beat knocked on the bottom of the heart. It made one's blood boil and the enemy's energy slack. Dong, dong, dong. Then there was a series of footsteps that sounded like drumming. It was so orderly that it sounded like a person running. Moreover, it contained a strong sense of rhythm. Then, the army of Dao soldiers instantly broke through the air from the sails and formed neat formations. They quickly gathered on the deck. 1, 2, 3, more than 10. There were Azura Dao soldiers, which were Dao soldiers from the blood sails. There were Wu Dao soldiers, which were Angel Dao soldiers, Zombie Dao soldiers, Sky Demon Dao soldiers, Sky Demon Dao soldiers. Chapter 1699. Dao soldiers were like sacrificial warriors. Any powerful force or individual would choose to refine them. Normally, they could be used as a trump card. Although eternal Dao soldiers weren't a trump card for Fang Qingshan, it didn't mean that his Dao soldiers were weak. On the contrary, it only meant that Fang Qingshan was stronger. As teams of Dao soldiers walked out, a murderous aura burst out. Masses of iron-blooded murderous aura gathered above their heads. Each Dao soldier gave off an extraordinary aura. Of course, the true strength of Dao soldiers wasn't in their individual bravery, although they weren't weak. However, the true strength was that as Dao soldiers, they cultivated the same cultivation method and combat technique. After interacting with each other day and night, they had a tacit understanding and were like a whole. When they walked out, there were thousands of soldiers and horses, but they were like one person. They were as immovable as a mountain and as fast as lightning. The aura they emitted was terrifying. Setting up a formation was like adding wings to a tiger. Compared to ordinary people, even if they were from the same sect, and had practiced together for a long time, the formation's power would increase by several levels or even several times. Moreover, it would be smoother and more flexible. It wouldn't be easy for others to target it and find its flaws. Although Fang Qingshan had only sent Dao soldiers in the sail unit this time, he hadn't sent the top Dao soldiers in the eternal military camp. However, it was more than enough to deal with the people from Lifeless Demon Palace. After all, Desolation and the others had relied on the formation, risking their lives and self-detonation to resist Lifeless Demon Palace. Although they hadn't used their full power, it still showed some problems. Fang Qingshan's Dao soldiers were incredible. Before he had broken through, he could resist the dragon beasts in Fallen Dragon's secret domain in a small area. It should be known that the cultivation of the dragon beasts was at the early stage of Immortal Realm. The top ones were at the late stage of Immortal Realm. There were many at the peak, and the king level was at the God Emperor level. Although there were eternal Dao soldiers, they hadn't fought against the king level dragon beasts. However, it was obvious that Lifeless Demon Palace couldn't be compared to Fallen Dragon's secret domain. Needless to say, with the advancement of the Timeless Arc, the Dao soldiers in the sail unit naturally increased in strength. With the help of all kinds of resources, they were constantly making breakthroughs, metamorphosing, and advancing. Every single one of them was stronger than before. It would increase by an unknown amount. He wanted to truly become a top-notch fighting force and stand among the strong. It possessed great destructive power. Good and evil will be repaid in the end. It's just a matter of whether it's early or late. Fang Qingshan snorted coldly. His face was cold, and his words were filled with killing intent. Kill! Kill! With Fang Qingshan's order, the various Dao soldiers took their positions and formed an array formation, shouting. With a sway of his body, he left the deck and appeared around the battlefield. In an instant, all kinds of array formations lit up. There was the Blood Sea Infinity Array. Blood clouds filled the sky, turning into a boundless sea of blood that swallowed and corroded everything. This was the Blood Sail, a Dao soldier array set up by the Azura race. It was the array formation from Mosquito Doran's Blood Sea Infinity Sutra. There was the Zhodian Star Array. Stars shone brightly. The sun and the moon competed with each other. As the stars fell, the sky collapsed. This was the array formation set up by the demon race in the Sky Demon Sail. With the evolution of the Zhodian Star Array, this array formation had long surpassed the demon race's sect-guarding array. There was the 12 Capital Heaven Divine Fiend Array, which was set up by the Wu people in the Sorcerer's Sail. Fang Qingshan was on good terms with the Wu people, and he also had Pangu's Heaven Opening Mark in his mind. It was normal for him to have this array formation, although the Capital Heaven Divine Fiend Array could only be set up by people at the Zuwu level. After the death of the 12 Zuwu, even the Wu people could not set it up anymore. However, Fang Qingshan was not an ordinary person. With a slight adjustment, he naturally got rid of the weakness. As for cultivation, they were not lacking in cultivation at all. There was also the Angel Dao soldiers in the Angel Sail. They set up the Heavenly Array, which spread holy light, and the glory of the Lord infected the world, summoning the Holy Church. This array formation was obtained by Fang Qingshan together with the precious treasure of the Angel Sail. It was also very powerful. In addition, there was the 9 Bends Yellow River Array, the 10 Ultimate Array, the 10,000 Dragons Facing the Sky Array, the 100 Birds Paying Homage to the Phoenix Array, the 10,000 Beasts Array, the 12 Primordial Stars Array, the 10,000 Immortals Array, the Yin and Yang Dust Sword Array. Although it was the same array formation, when it was used by Fang Qingshan's Dao soldiers, its power was incomparable to that of the Desolation Array. After all, these arrays had all been optimized by Fang Qingshan. They had long surpassed the original. In addition, the cultivation and compatibility of the Dao soldiers. Once it was unleashed, streaks of extremely sharp, killing intent burst forth. Formless sword chi, blood chi, and baleful chi rippled, tearing everything in the surroundings apart. They turned into extremely ferocious attacks that blasted towards the disciples of the Lifeless Demon Palace and the traitors who belonged to them. The Tao soldiers themselves were already very extraordinary, let alone when they worked together to set up the array formation. Arrays were originally a great way for the weak to defeat the strong. When the Tao soldiers set up the array formation, it was like adding wings to a tiger. All of a sudden, its power was unparalleled, especially when compared to the people from the lifeless demon palace. The gap was even more obvious. What was a true elite army? What was a miscellaneous army? Without comparison, there would be no harm. Previously, the people from the Desolation Array were in danger. Now, they could not even move an inch. It was the people from the lifeless demon palace who were on the verge of collapse. From the scale, to the cultivation, to the compatibility, to the coordination, in all aspects, comparing the two was like comparing heaven and earth. There was no way to compare them. The difference was too obvious. Aura, cultivation, armaments, from the appearance of the timeless ark to the attacks of the Tao soldiers. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. No one could react. Not only were the people from the lifeless demon palace stunned, even the people from the Desolation Array were dumbfounded. They could not react for a moment and felt like they were in a dream. What happened? Could this be a dream? It could be a conspiracy of the lifeless demon palace. At this moment, the people from the Desolation Array seemed to be in an illusion. They stopped fighting and just stared blankly at the scene in front of them. When Fang Qingshan heard this, several black lines appeared on his forehead, and he rolled his eyes. These people must have been beaten silly by the people from the lifeless demon palace. They actually thought it was a conspiracy. At the same time, when Xu Yue and the others also woke up, excited, trembling, suffocating, proud at this moment, she could not control herself. Her tears flowed down uncontrollably like a fountain. She knew that the old ancestor was extraordinary and very powerful. After all, Fang Qingshan was very powerful in the past and could pass through the array silently to return to the Desolation Array. In addition, he was full of confidence and would not seek his own death. He was not arrogant, but she did not expect him to be so powerful. This was completely beyond her imagination. Chapter 1700. The people on Desolation's side felt like they were in a dream. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. However, as the targeted party, the people of the lifeless demon palace reacted quickly after the initial shock. Everyone's hearts felt like they had been hit hard. An unprecedented sense of danger welled up in them. Compared to the past, when lifeless demon palace had been attacked, they had been forced to retreat. This time, they were even more ferocious. Tao soldiers. Top-notch Tao soldiers. And there were so many of them. Those who didn't know better would think that dozens of top-notch factions had come to attack them. It wasn't that lifeless demon palace didn't have any Tao soldiers. But even the Tao soldiers they had nurtured paled in comparison. Everything they had was enough to crush them. Damn it! Who the hell has appeared out of nowhere? Are they reinforcements from Desolation's side? No. If they were reinforcements, why would they only appear now? Then someone from the outside world has barged in? Why didn't the people guarding the formation inform us? Quick, call for reinforcements. War. Danger. It was more violent and unexpected than they had imagined. There was no time to think. Someone from the lifeless demon palace suddenly took out a bronze, curved, spiral horn and blew into it. Woo woo woo. The sound of a bugle horn could be heard, like that of 10,000 beasts breaking formations. It was like a thunderclap, like the roar of 10,000 beasts from the primordial vast expanse. In an instant, it shook the heavens and the earth. At this moment, all the lifeless demon palace disciples in the Pan-Gu chaos world were alarmed, whether they were in seclusion or not. Actually, there was no need to blow the horn. When Fang Qingshan had taken out the timeless ark and sent out the Tao soldiers, everyone had been alarmed. Even extermination demon supremacy, who was fighting with the will of the great path, was no exception. Damn it, how'd I get exposed so quickly? An ominous feeling rose in extermination demon supremacy's heart. On one hand, like the others, there was an indescribable sense of danger in the unseen world. Furthermore, the will of the great path was about to collapse. Soon, he would be able to completely refine the great path and become its master. But at this moment, Fang Qingshan's sudden appearance had obviously caused a new variable to appear in the matter. Hey, annihilation, just give up. You won't succeed. The will of the great path, which had been struggling bitterly, laughed out loud. Humph, things haven't reached the final moment, and you think that I've lost? Demon Venerable Extermination snorted coldly. Furthermore, do you really think that these people are reinforcements? Do you think that anyone would give up such a great opportunity? Even if I fail, your fate is already sealed. That's hard to say. The will of the great path was unmoved, and an inexplicable expression appeared on its face. This was because from the aura that Fang Qingshan exuded, he felt a familiar yet strange feeling, but there was also a sense of familiarity. The familiar yet strange feeling was easy to understand. After all, Fang Qingshan was born in this world, and he had come into contact with the great path before. Even though he had severed his karma and fate, he still had some memories. It was just that Fang Qingshan had changed so much that the great path did not dare to think in that direction. Regardless of the battle between the will of the great path and demon venerable extermination, as the bugle sounded, all the experts of the lifeless demon palace gathered together to attack. At this moment, they could no longer care about killing 1,000 enemies and sacrificing 800 of their own. This was because the offensive and defensive forces were different. At this moment, the initiative was completely in Fang Qingshan's hands. It was not that they wanted to fight, but just like desolation, they had no choice but to fight. The army was vast and mighty, surging like the surging tides, surging endlessly. Deputy palace lords, various hall masters, protectors, elders, and all of them. Apart from demon venerable extermination, the entire lifeless demon palace had come out. The war had begun. For a moment, the sounds of killing shook the heavens, and a murderous aura surged. The battle between the lifeless demon palace and desolation paled in comparison. In an instant, the people of the lifeless demon palace clashed with Fang Qingshan's Dao soldiers. However, as soon as they clashed, there were casualties. Moreover, there were many casualties. Every dog has its day. Tomorrow, it will be my home. These words were not false. The people of the lifeless demon palace, who had been unscrupulously slaughtering desolation, now felt the same. Against Fang Qingshan's Dao soldiers, they were the weaklings. Although the people of the lifeless demon palace were not weak. Demon venerable extermination had advanced to the god emperor level, and the deputy palace lords, hall masters, protectors, elders, senior team leaders, junior team leaders, and all the disciples had all improved to different levels. As void thieves, they were used to killing, and their combat power was astonishing. It was a pity that this depended on who they were compared to. At this moment, the lifeless demon palace might even be ranked in the top 3 among the void thieves. They might even be stronger than some of the smaller forces in the myriad heavens and myriad worlds. However, compared to Fang Qingshan, they paled in comparison. Therefore, even though they had many people, strong combat power, and shocking momentum, when they unleashed their full power, that kind of power was extremely shocking and terrifying. Unfortunately, since there was you, there was also Liang. At this moment, the cruelty of war was displayed in front of them. 1 piece, 2 pieces, 3 pieces, these people who died were naturally their subordinates. The disciples of the lifeless demon palace were not much better off. They were all like dumplings falling into a pot, and were instantly scattered. It was full of twists and turns. The tragic situation finally woke the people of the desolation from their daze. Like one Shue, a wave of uncontrollable excitement, happiness, and excitement surged in their hearts. If it wasn't for the wrong place and time, they would have been celebrating. However, they knew that now was not the time to celebrate. Even though they did not know who they were, seeing the familiar formations, how could they not know that they were reinforcements? Even though they were reinforcements, they could not just watch while the enemy fought. Moreover, they were more than willing to beat the enemy when they were down. Kill. Everyone, let's attack together. It's time for revenge. Kill. In an instant, it was as if all of them had been injected with a great amount of energy. they burst forth and counterattacked, immediately causing a great deal of trouble for the people from the lifeless demon palace. There were wolves in front and tigers behind. The morale of the people of the lifeless demon palace was instantly low. They were unstoppable in battles, but once they suffered a setback, they were just a motley crew. In the face of Fang Qingshan's Taoist soldiers, they collapsed as soon as they came into contact with them. They almost had no power to fight back. The attacks of the people of the untainted land, especially Hutu, Hongjun, and the others who saw the opportunity to launch a general attack, became the straw that broke the camel's back. Defeat. Defeat at the front line. Complete defeat. In an instant, the army was defeated like a landslide. Chapter 17:01. Retreat. 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 The powerhouses of the lifeless demon palace had ugly expressions on their faces. Although they had expected this to happen when the Dao soldiers had burst forth, they had only realized that the situation was worse than they had expected when they actually fought. As a result, the top powerhouses roared and ordered their disciples to retreat while they rushed to the front line at full speed. It was not that they were selfless and selfless. However, this was the best solution at the moment. Now that the situation had changed drastically, the lifeless demon palace was in a very disadvantageous position. If the weak stayed, it would only increase the number of casualties. It would also affect morale. It would be better to retreat first and let them fight for a while to stabilize their position. As for why they didn't retreat, it was because although the Dao soldiers were strong, they might still be able to fight. Furthermore, was this a place where they could come and go as they pleased? If they wanted to retreat, they would have to see if Fang Qingshan was willing. Can you leave? Fang Qingshan chuckled softly. Previously, the lifeless demon palace disciples were entangled with the disciples of desolation, so it wasn't appropriate for him to make a move. However, as they stood up and wanted to resist, and they were all at the immortal realm, the chance was right in front of him. Of course, Fang Qingshan wouldn't miss it. However, he didn't move at all. He just gently shook his sleeves, just like when he rescued Wen Xue. However, the result was the same. There was no earth-shattering sound, no colorful changes, and no horrifying pressure. There was only a gentle breeze. Those experts from the lifeless demon palace who were trying to stand firm in front of the Dao soldiers were instantly blown away like dandelions, scattering all over the sky, listening to the thunder in silence. Although the commotion wasn't huge, the scene was even more shocking. One must know that these people were all standing at the top of the pyramid of desolation. However, in Fang Qingshan's hands, it was like an adult beating up a child. They did not have the slightest ability to resist and died instantly. 1, 2, 3. Every single expert of the lifeless devil palace stood up. It didn't matter if it was the early stage of Immortal Realm, the middle stage, the late stage, or even the peak. There was no difference at all. Die, die, die. In an instant, everyone from the lifeless demon palace and the Alliance of Desolation were terrified. The former was easy to deal with. They were completely scared out of their wits and had lost their fighting spirit. She wished that she had never been to the Desolation Room. She wished that she could escape immediately. However, she felt as if her entire body had been hollowed out. She could not exert any strength. Her feet were rooted to the ground, and she could not move. As for the latter, although Hudo Hongjun and the others had already seen some clues from the Timeless Arc, from the Dao Soldier Formation, from the One Blood Moon, and even from the familiar aura of Fang Qingshan, he knew that Fang Qingshan was his reinforcement and that he was on the same side as him. But at this moment, they started to doubt themselves. After all, Fang Qingshan's change was too huge. It was so huge that they started to doubt their lives. Moreover, even if they felt that it was harmless, this was something beyond their control. If they were to put themselves in Fang Qingshan's shoes and face this attack, they would not fare any better than the people from the lifeless demon palace. They would not be able to resist at all. This made them shudder in fear. Actually, they cannot be blamed. Fang Qingshan's improvement and changes were rare in the infinite void, not to mention the Alliance of Desolation and Pangu's Primal Chaos world. If not for the fact that he had fully matured, he would have been captured and dissected long ago. Disregarding all of this, they called him sick and wanted his life. Kill. Using this opportunity, the Dao soldiers under Fang Qingshan attacked. They attacked with all their might and killed nonstop. The people of the lifeless demon palace were already weaker than the Dao soldiers. Without the support of the top experts, in just a short moment, the number of people who died was almost 30% of the total number of people. At this moment, everyone was scared out of their wits and started to flee. They wished they could have 2 more legs so that they could flee in all directions and escape from this place. They swore that if they could escape, they would never come back to the Alliance of Desolation. This was the birthplace of nightmares. As for Fang Qingshan, they did not even dare to think about it. Just the thought of it was enough to make them break out of their guts. Unfortunately, while their thoughts were beautiful, they had to be able to escape first. 10%, 20%, 30%. In just a short while, the lifeless demon palace had lost more than half of their people. As for the traitors under them, almost all of them were dead. Damn it, you deserve to die. Demon Lord Extermination had not expected things to develop so quickly. Although he had felt threatened, he had thought that it was just an obstacle to his refining of the great Tao. So he had sped up the process. He had not expected that the lifeless demon palace would suffer such a huge loss in an instant. If he had waited any longer, the forces that he had painstakingly built up would have vanished into thin air. Before one's strength reached a certain level, a force was still very helpful. Therefore, the extermination demon, Venerable, naturally wouldn't just watch his efforts go to waste. Of course, there was another reason. Although he had tried his best, refining the great Tao was not something that could be done in a short period of time. If he could not refine the great Tao, he naturally could not watch as his disciples were killed. Therefore, Demon Lord Extermination gave up on refining the great Tao and prepared to deal with Fang Qingshan first. Logically speaking, the great Tao should be restraining Demon Lord Extermination at this time. However, he did not. This was because he was almost at the end of his rope. If not for Fang Qingshan and Demon Lord Extermination holding on, he probably would not have been able to hold on. Moreover, he felt that Fang Qingshan was not easy to deal with. Even if Demon Lord Extermination attacked with all his might, he might not be able to do what he wanted. Moreover, if he restrained Demon Lord Extermination now, he would definitely incur Demon Lord Extermination's crazy revenge. Therefore, the great Tao did not attack. However, to Fang Qingshan, it did not matter at all. How dare you kill the people of the lifeless demon palace? No matter who you are, you must die. Before he had finished speaking, Demon Lord Extermination's attack arrived first. Before Demon Lord Extermination had broken through, he had the title of Immortal. Although it was not a purple title, he was definitely not weaker than Jiang Overlord. After breaking through, he was even more unstoppable. Otherwise, the great Tao, who had a peak level 3 supreme treasure, would not have been so out of breath. At this moment, it was unknown whether it was because he was used to suddenly attacking or because the Tao soldiers had killed too many people of the lifeless demon palace. Therefore, he did not have the heart of an expert and directly attacked the Tao soldier formation. A series of sinister laughter could be heard. Demon Lord Extermination's attack had arrived. Buzz! The void shattered, and a terrifying soul storm was emitted from between his eyebrows, sweeping across the entire place. A terrifying intent of extermination suddenly erupted. Chapter 17:02. The soul storm condensed into a mountain-sized funnel that floated in the air. It spun continuously, connecting the heavens and the earth, and it continued to grow. Woo woo woo. A terrifying howl came from the sky. It was the howl of the wind and also the howl of swords. The huge soul storm swept out, turning into a storm. But these gusts of wind were also gusts of swords. The howl of the wind and the hum of the swords were very strange. It was a strange noise that sounded like the wailing of ghosts and howling of wolves. It was ear-piercing, unpleasant, and painful. Of course, the most important thing was not the howl. In a soul storm, the soul was in front, and the storm was behind. Hence, the focus was on the soul, not the storm. Hence, the howl of the wind from the storm was like a sound wave attack. Of course, the howl of the wind was so solid that it could be seen with the naked eye. It turned into countless sword chi that shot into the sky. Every sword chi was like a real dragon, dancing in the air. The roar of the dragon shook the sky. Countless dragon shadows danced in the air, crisscrossing and extremely sharp. It could slaughter the world and freeze the world for 1,000 years. But none of this was scary. What was scary was the true will of annihilation contained in the storm. But one could see that the soul storm, filled with the smell of blood and despair, blew over, spreading out in everyone's Niwen palace. If one's will was not strong, their soul was not solid, and they did not have any special mystiques or spirit treasures, their Yuan spirit would probably collapse in less than an hour. It was truly frightening. Soul Storm, the Annihilation Demon Venerable's ultimate technique. He had obtained the title of Annihilation Demon Venerable not only because he cultivated the Tao of Annihilation, but also because of this mystique that was compatible with the laws of annihilation. Otherwise, how could he, a mere rogue cultivator and a void thief, obtain the title of being no weaker than the Tyrant of the Rivers, go through hardships to open up the mountains and forests, and establish the lifeless demon palace? Speaking of which, this mystique was based on his supreme will. It stabilized the mind, controlled the heart, and grasped the 7 emotions and 6 desires. With a single thought, the boundless soul storm swept out. It ignored the physical defenses and physical defenses and directly affected the Niwen Palace and Yuan spirit. In other words, if you didn't have a divine ability or spirit treasure to protect your soul, you could only passively take a beating. Moreover, looking at the power of the storm, ordinary divine ability or spirit treasure would be useless. Whether you could withstand it and how long you could withstand it all depended on how condensed your soul was. Apart from that, the soul storm was a divine ability that matched the extermination demon venerate's Tao of extermination. Naturally, it also contained his origin great Tao of extermination. The destroyer was destruction. The absolute was despair. Destruction meant invincible and unparalleled attack power. It had a ruthless lethality. Despair meant that there was no room for resistance. They could even subdue the enemy without a fight. Despair makes you unable to resist. Destruction destroys everything. The combination of these two, coupled with the soul storm's ability to ignore ordinary defenses, was like adding wings to a tiger. For a moment, half the sky was dyed red with blood. It was like a blood-red tide was spreading rapidly. The wind was howling. The dragons were roaring. The swords were humming. Despair was spreading, and destruction was sweeping. It covered the sky and swallowed everything. The Tao soldiers who were killing the lifeless demon palace like a hot knife through butter came to an abrupt halt. If not for the fact that their cultivation base was decent and their determination was firm, they would have been bound together for good or ill. Otherwise, the formation would have been shattered. Even though it did not collapse, it was on the verge of collapsing. Extermination Demon Venerate. The people of the untainted land, who were following behind the Tao soldiers and beating the dogs when they were down, immediately froze before the smiles on their faces could fade away. They were motionless as if someone had cast a body-fixing spell on them. Only their pupils shrank and their bodies trembled to express their fear. From the top to the bottom, from the immortal realm to the zenith heaven realm, there was one. At the sight of the newcomer, the people of the untainted land immediately cried out in surprise. Their desire to kill and take revenge instantly vanished, as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over their heads. Although they didn't fall into despair, their confidence was greatly reduced, and they fell into chaos. The Tao soldiers were so powerful, but there would be no harm without comparison. The strength they had displayed previously only served to show how terrifying the extermination demon lord was. The old trauma had yet to dissipate, but a new fear had already struck him. Now, the extermination demon lord had become the nightmare of the people of desolation. It was because of his existence that the people of desolation were in such dire straits. They were chased out of desolation and almost became prisoners. Now, he appeared again, and once he appeared, he destroyed their hopes. As long as he was alive, as long as he wasn't defeated, the shadow in their hearts would not fade. Most importantly, Hong Jun and the others sensed a much more powerful aura from Extermination Demon Venerate compared to when they first met. Clearly, during this time, while suppressing the Great Path, his body didn't stagnate. Instead, it became more refined. For a moment, everyone's eyes widened. Their faces were solemn, and their eyes were filled with fear. How could it be? It was difficult for them to improve their cultivation at the immortal realm, but the Extermination Demon Lord's Divine Emperor cultivation improved faster than them. How could they believe it? It was just like how Fang Qingshan improved faster and faster. He was an existence that could destroy their worldview. I don't know if he can defeat the Extermination Demon Lord. Don't even talk about defeating him. As long as he doesn't fall into a disadvantageous position, it'll be fine. I hope he won't give us hope and then make us despair. He won't. If he dares to take action, he must be confident. We just need to wait and see. That's all we can do now. We'll take one step at a time. If it doesn't work, we can only... Hutu and the others looked at Fang Qingshan and muttered to themselves. His tone was filled with uncertainty, self-consolation, and determination. Until now, they were exhausted. They had to rely on their strong willpower to support themselves. However, they were too tired. No one knew if they could endure until the next moment, especially after Fang Qingshan's arrival had given them hope. If they lost their hope, they would fall into despair. Could Fang Qingshan resist him? They didn't know. If he could, it would be the best result. Everybody would be happy. If he couldn't, they could only try their best to see if they could be reborn or not. Apparently, Fang Qingshan didn't know what Hutu and the others were thinking. If he knew, he would have snorted. It was just Extermination Demon Lord. He had defeated the two-faced Divine Emperor. He was the #1 Divine Emperor. If he couldn't solve such a small matter, his title of the #1 Divine Emperor would be a joke. If the news got out, not only him, but also the two-faced Divine Emperor and the origin of all heavens would be humiliated. Chapter 1703. Interesting. When the Exterminating Demon Venerate attacked, it seemed like he controlled the entire situation. The situation changed, and many of the Dao soldiers were severely injured. Although these Dao soldiers were not the eternal Dao soldiers of the Eternal Barracks, with the advancement of the Timeless Arc and the accumulation of various resources, they were definitely not weak. The weakest of them was close to the Immortal Realm. Although the Immortal Realm of Dao soldiers was not as comprehensive as the Immortal Realm of ordinary people, they had to sacrifice some things in exchange for lethality. Otherwise, the Dao soldiers would not be like Death Warriors. However, this did not hinder their lethality and combat effectiveness. Especially when they formed a formation, it was normal for them to challenge those of a higher level. However, when facing Extermination Demon Venerable's attack, they were still vulnerable. It was not that they were weak, but Extermination Demon Venerable's Soul Storm could ignore ordinary defenses. Moreover, a Divine Emperor actually launched a sneak attack. Of course, the most important thing was Extermination Demon Venerable's cultivation. Although things seemed to be a little out of his expectations, Fang Qingshan's expression did not change at all. He was calm and composed. How could such a small change affect him? After all, he was a man who had even been possessed by a venerable emperor and had fought against 2 emperor gods. Instead, Extermination Demon Venerable's cultivation caught Fang Qingshan's attention. From Wen Shiyue, Fang Qingshan knew that Extermination Demon Venerable only broke through to the Divine Emperor level after coming to the Desolation Realm. Only then did he have the power to sweep the world. But now, it seemed that the situation was slightly different. Logically speaking, if Extermination Demon Venerable only managed to break through in the untainted wilderness, his cultivation base should at most be similar to Jiang Overlord and the others. After the 2 of them broke through, their cultivation base would at most reach the mid-deity Emperor realm. Extermination Demon Venerable should also have a similar cultivation. However, Extermination Demon Venerable's current cultivation was no weaker than Fang Qingshan's breakthrough. He was actually a late-stage Divine Emperor. Fang Qingshan did not believe that Extermination Demon Venerable's foundation could be compared to his. This could only mean that Extermination Demon Venerable had already broken through to the Divine Emperor level before coming to the Desolation Realm. However, he hid it from everyone and planned something. However, with the discovery of Pan Gu's Primal Chaos World, his plans couldn't keep up with the changes, forcing him to expose himself ahead of time. Furthermore, he had obtained quite a lot of opportunities in the Desolation, which allowed him to make a breakthrough in such a short period of time. In addition, it was strange that Extermination Demon Venerable, who was a late-stage deity emperor, could not take down the Great Tao in a short time. From the looks of it, there seemed to be something strange about the Great Path as well. Either the Extermination Demon Venerable was suppressed by the heavens and earth and could not unleash his full strength, or the will of the Great Path was not as simple as it seemed. Of course, regardless of whether it was the Demon Lord of Annihilation or the will of the Great Path, regardless of their cultivation, to Fang Qingshan, they were only slightly surprised. To him, the final result would not change. It was still just a matter of one move. After all, those divine emperors in the Tidal Tower were just SOSO. Moreover, they were definitely no match for those tidal deity emperors. Therefore, Fang Qingshan would not use too much of his strength. Freeze! With Fang Qingshan's shout, he seemed to have replaced the will of the Great Path and become the ruler of Pan Gu's Primal Chaos World. His words were the law. The storm, which had been raging like a hot knife through butter, seemed to have been paused. Disperse! Another shout. In an instant, the scarlet storm soul, which had been frozen in the air, seemed to be affected by an irresistible factor. The space trembled slightly and then disappeared instantly. If not for the fact that many Tao soldiers were affected to different degrees, those who did not know what had happened would have thought that nothing had happened here. Seeing this, the people of Desolation naturally felt a surge of strength from the bottom of their hearts. They felt lucky to have survived a disaster, as well as an indescribable confidence in Fang Qingshan. Previously, the power of demon extermination had been too terrifying. If they had not been following behind the Tao soldiers, most of the power of the Soul Storm would have been directed at the Tao soldiers. If they had faced it themselves, most of the people of Desolation would have been either injured or killed, except for a small number of people. Demon Extermination's pupils shrank and narrowed. He looked at Fang Qingshan with fear and uneasiness. Because the Tao soldiers were so powerful, they had killed too many disciples of the lifeless Demon Palace, and even Fang Qingshan had been there. Therefore, Demon Extermination did not hold back at all. Not only did he launch a sneak attack, but he also went all out. He wanted to get revenge, destroy the Tao soldiers, and cut off one of Fang Qingshan's arms at the same time to weaken his strength. Then, he could deal with Fang Qingshan with peace of mind. However, he did not expect that although he had expected the beginning, he did not expect the ending. The Tao soldiers had almost been destroyed by him, and Fang Qingshan's strength had been weakened. However, he did not know that the Tao soldiers were not even a drop in the ocean for Fang Qingshan. Most importantly, Fang Qingshan was able to easily freeze it and disperse its soul storm with just a wave of his hand. This was out of his expectations. Damn it! How is this possible? Who are you? Why did you kill the disciples of the lifeless Demon Palace? Because of the fear in his heart, Demon Extermination did not attack Fang Qingshan immediately. Instead, he asked. Of course, he was also preparing in secret. Who am I? You are not worthy to know. We are old friends, although you may not know. If Fang Qingshan's cultivation and battle prowess were not that far apart from Demon Venerable Annihilation, if he were to face Taoist EE or even the First Divine General, at this moment, Fang Qingshan would not say anything and would directly attack. Even a lion would use its full strength to catch a rabbit, lest its boat capsize in the gutter. He would not let them go and not care about anything. Unfortunately, the gap between him and Demon Extermination was too big. Cultivation, fighting strength, experience, he crushed Fang Qingshan in all aspects. The gap was so big that even if he had a level 4 Supreme Treasure, it would not be a threat to Fang Qingshan. Instead, it might even be a gift to him. Therefore, Fang Qingshan completely ignored Demon Extermination's little tricks and said calmly, "Originally, if you did not provoke me and did not appear in front of me, I would have forgotten about you. Unfortunately, the heavens want you dead. I will give you a choice. Kill yourself or else." Ha, ha, ha. Hearing Fang Qingshan's words, Demon Extermination was so angry that he laughed. Even though he was afraid of Fang Qingshan, even though he felt the sudden inspiration and the danger, it was impossible for him to kill himself. As a void thief, he had experienced many trials and tribulations. As a void thief, he had gone through many trials and tribulations. Do you think you can defeat me just like that? Naive. Chapter 1704. Extermination Demon Venerable was furious. Kill himself? That was a great humiliation to him. Even when he had not become a divine emperor and was still at the immortal realm, he had been able to escape unscathed from a divine emperor's attack, let alone now. He had already become a late-stage divine emperor. He had to admit that the appearance of Fang Qingshan, the sweep of the Dao soldiers, and the fact that his soul storm had been easily destroyed by Fang Qingshan. All these incidents showed that the strength of this strange enemy, Fang Qingshan, was completely beyond his imagination. Extermination Demon Venerable knew that he would not be a match for Fang Qingshan if he did not use his trump card. But that did not mean that he could only be a fish on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. Therefore, he did not probe or hesitate at all. In order to avoid any trouble, Extermination Demon Venerable directly used his trump card. He would finish the battle in one go and win the battle in one fell swoop. As for failure, Extermination Demon Venerable did not think that he would fail after using his trump card. After all, he was quite confident in this trump card. Moreover, although Fang Qingshan was powerful, he did not think that he would be so unlucky as to meet a top divine emperor. Unfortunately, he didn't know that his luck was just that bad. Of all people, he had to meet Fang Qingshan, the newly emerged first divine emperor. Even if he wanted to turn around and escape now, he would not have a chance, let alone win the battle. Extreme glory! Putting all this aside, as Demon Venerable Extermination shouted, a trump card was revealed. Heaven and earth were split apart, and endless creation was revealed. The chaos was broken, and the earth, wind, water, and fire were wantonly. Tao begets one. Yin and Yang alternated. Two begets three. The five elements beget each other. Three begets all things. The 8 trigrams evolved, and infinite creation splashed out. Wind and rain alternated. The 4 seasons cycled. The heavenly cycle manifested, and living beings multiplied. The great way was endless, and there was endless hope. Billions of living beings prayed piously, and streams of faith power lit up the star fire, radiating the light of hope. Even if one was in despair, the light of hope would give birth to hope. From an ordinary person to an immortal, then to an origin immortal, and then to a venerable sovereign, the great way was smooth. This scene looked endlessly beautiful. Unfortunately, the peak of prosperity was followed by a decline. All of this was like adding a fresh flower to a brocade, adding oil to a raging fire. In less than an hour, the glory was destroyed. Good fortune was severed, spiritual energy was exhausted, the laws were in disorder, and destruction was born. Hope was lost. The great Tao was severed. There was no hope for immortality, and despair spread. As the saying goes, extreme yin gives birth to yang, extreme hardness gives birth to softness. That was the reason. From one extreme to the other, behind the extreme glory, there was naturally endless destruction. This was Demon Venerable Extermination's trump card. Borrowing the endless fortune and hope, it reversed the extreme sublimation of destruction and despair. Actually, he was not the only one. Wasn't the Sword Emperor of the Storm the same? He had attained the Tao in the Void Calamity, but he lived on Blessed Spring Mountain. He preached to all living beings, not only to give back to the world, but also to spread hope and fortune. Come to think of it, with the reversal of the glory, a sense of extinction that seemed to have undergone a qualitative change erupted. In an instant, the entire Pangu chaos world was enveloped within it. In fact, despair was not terrible. The most terrible thing was when one saw hope, and then the hope turned into despair right in front of one's eyes. This was the most terrible thing. With the help of this secret method, the blood sea suddenly surged and filled the sky. The destructive tide surged and engulfed everything. A figure moved up and down in the destructive ripples, emitting a monstrous malice and murderous intent. Die, you're going to die. The great Tao is going to die. Everyone is going to die. Be destroyed, be in despair. Be destroyed and become resources for my progress. When I become a venerable emperor, I will share the glory with you. An extremely evil voice filled the world, making those with weaker cultivation feel extremely uncomfortable. They felt that their spirits were fluctuating uncontrollably, as if they were about to tear their skin and soar into the sky. There were even some who wanted to commit suicide. Retreat, retreat quickly. Seeing this, the expressions of Hutu, Hongjun, and the others changed dramatically. Not to mention those with weaker cultivation, even they were greatly affected. And this was because Demon Extermination Venerable had not targeted them. Otherwise, the situation would have been even worse. Hutu, Hongjun, and Ro had no time to think. They hurriedly called for the others to retreat. The three of them strengthened their great Tao, stood in front of the others, and took out their supreme treasures to cover their retreat. At the same time, they looked at Fang Qingshan with worry in their eyes. Previously, Demon Extermination Venerable had already made them feel helpless. Now that he had such a trump card, they really felt despair. But at the same time, they felt lucky. They did not know why. Maybe it was luck, maybe he had underestimated them, or maybe there were other reasons. However, Demon Extermination Venerable had not used this trump card to deal with them. Otherwise, Desolation would have been finished long ago. In fact, this was normal. In Demon Extermination Venerable's view, Desolation was not worth using his trump card at all. If he wanted to deal with them, it was just a matter of time. Moreover, trump cards were trump cards because they could not be used easily. Although the ultimate brilliance was extraordinary, the Extermination Demon Venerate had to pay a huge price to use it. Therefore, he wouldn't use it unless he had no other choice. That was why the Great Desolate Era had a chance of survival. What a good ultimate brilliance. Not bad, not bad. Compared to Desolation and the others, who had seen this scene with solemnity, fear, anxiety, and despair, Fang Qingshan's expression did not change at all. This kind of amplification secret skill was not rare. From the low-end blood-burning method to Fang Qingshan's amplification law, Fang Qingshan had seen many of them. The only advantage of this secret skill was that it was extremely compatible with Demon Extermination Venerable's Great Tao. Therefore, its great amplification caught Fang Qingshan's attention. Demon Extermination Venerable was originally a late God Emperor. After using this secret skill, he had broken through to the peak God Emperor. Although he had not reached the Title Master level, let alone the half-step Emperor level, he was no weaker than Chang Lu Shui. With this kind of cultivation, he could be regarded as a mainstay in a force like the Thousand Autumn sect. Generally speaking, as long as his luck was not too bad, he could basically do whatever he wanted. Unfortunately, not to mention the current Fang Qingshan, even if he had not broken through to the peak God Emperor level, he was not strong enough. Demon Extermination Venerable obviously did not know this. With the amplification and the breakthrough of his cultivation, he was exceptionally strong, unprecedentedly strong, and his confidence had skyrocketed. The blood sea surged and destruction swept out. He flew quickly, carrying with him an astonishing pressure that filled the heavens and earth. Apart from Fang Qingshan, everyone found it difficult to breathe. They felt as if they were being swallowed by the destructive ripples and despair. All they could see was a suffocating blood-red color. Chapter 17:05. Kill. Demon Venerate Extermination opened his mouth and spat out the words. A golden sword light had already appeared in front of him. This was the power of his origin source law. It instantly turned into two simple ancient seals that formed the word extermination. The ancient words naturally transmitted a vast and unparalleled true intent of extermination. It was a pure and hopeless intent of destroying the world. It emitted a brilliant light that was directly added to the treasured sword in his hand. It tore through the air and attacked Fang Qingshan. As the sword descended, wisps of light appeared between heaven and earth. The light seemed to spread out from nothingness and instantly filled the entire area. Every strand of light carried a trace of indescribable sharpness. There was nothing it couldn't cut through, and nothing could block it. The most crucial thing wasn't whether he could block it or not. Instead, he seemed to have lost his confidence and completely given up on living. The vast sword light exploded from afar and swept over. It also seemed to be right in front of them. Be careful. Seeing this scene, Hong Jun and the others only had time to give a warning. Their hearts were in their throats. Although Demon Venerate Extermination's sword was not aimed at them, and although they were also very far away from it. Even though it was just the aftermath, Hong Jun and the others' expressions changed drastically. They felt that the power contained in the sword light was terrifying. Even though they were holding treasures in their hands, they seemed to be unable to bear the heavy burden and cried out in pain. However, this was nothing to Fang Qingshan. He still had time to nod at Hong Jun and the others and smile faintly, indicating that they did not need to worry. Just as Demon Venerate Extermination's sword was about to descend, Fang Qingshan casually pointed out with a finger. Although Fang Qingshan did not use any numinous treasure or any divine powers, he only used a little bit of his strength to point at the heavenly monarch. However, the effect was not inferior to the soul storm that Demon Venerate Extermination had previously displayed. After all, Fang Qingshan cultivated in spirit, energy, and essence. The strength of his body refinement wasn't inferior to chi refinement or spirit refinement in the slightest. His current body wasn't inferior to a grade 3 precious treasure in the slightest. This point of his finger was like a sharp sword that could cut through the heavens. It burst forth with an extremely cold light that cut through the void and slashed at the extermination demon venerable. This finger didn't have the aura of the laws, nor did it have the flow of the Tao. It didn't have any surging power. It only magnified like an ancient mountain that had experienced the vicissitudes of time, or like a collapsing heavenly pillar. Its aura was thick, but not ostentatious. However, in the eyes of the extermination demon venerate, there was an unprecedented look of fear. This was because when this finger fell, it seemed as if it was light and didn't carry the slightest bit of strength. However, it also seemed to be extremely heavy. As this finger was pointed out, the extermination swordsmanship that he had displayed, which had been enhanced by the secret technique that he had displayed, was like the winter snow meeting the spring sun. It directly dissipated into thin air. The fingertips continued to fall on him without slowing down. Demon Venerable Annihilation wanted to struggle, to resist, and to escape, but all his efforts were in vain. At this moment, he was like the monkey king in the hands of the Buddha. No matter how hard he tried, it was of no use. His entire body was like an ant trapped in rosin, imprisoned and unable to move. Puffed. Blood splattered from between the eyebrows of the extermination demon venerate. It seemed like a moment had passed, but it also seemed like an eternity had been frozen. The extermination demon venerate's entire body exploded, and his flesh and blood splattered everywhere. Even his primordial spirit and real spirit were torn apart. Under this finger, they exploded. Although Fang Qingshan didn't use his full strength, he had no intention of showing mercy, nor did he intend to play tricks on the other party. Although he might have had a lot of karma with the extermination demon venerate, it wasn't an irreconcilable enmity. He just needed to end it. He didn't need to torture the other party and light the sky lanterns on them. The extermination demon venerate was indeed impressive. He had come this far as a void thief. If not for Fang Qingshan, he would have obtained the heritage of the Pan-Gu chaotic world. It wouldn't have been a problem for him to create a force that wasn't weaker than the great families of the Shang chaotic world. Unfortunately, the extermination demon Venerate was born at the wrong time. He didn't have enough luck to meet Fang Qingshan. With Fang Qingshan's current peak divine emperor cultivation, coupled with his evolved emperor-level essence, chi, and spirit, even if he didn't use his full strength, not to mention the extermination demon Venerate, even those peak divine emperors in the title steel, or even the cyan title steel, wouldn't be a match for him. Not to mention that the extermination demon Venerate was at most on par with people like Chang Lu Shui. The people of the lifeless demon palace were pleasantly surprised, while the people of the desolation palace were still immersed in panic. At this moment, all the expressions on their faces stiffened. From a moment the extermination demon Venerate attacked to the moment he was killed by Fang Qingshan, everything happened in the blink of an eye. It was too fast, so fast that no one had time to adjust their reactions. Everyone couldn't help but blink their eyes as they looked at the scene of flesh and blood splattering everywhere. No one said a word. The whole world seemed to be so quiet that even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. There were many twists and turns. If it wasn't for their good health, they would have had a heart attack. After a long while, someone finally regained his senses and murmured. It was as if he was in a dream. It was too unreal. Impossible. How is this possible? The palace master is invincible. I don't believe it. This is fake. Everything is fake. The people of the lifeless demon palace were the most incredulous. They couldn't accept this fact at all. They looked around, hoping to find a complete extermination demon Venerate somewhere else. Indeed, the extermination demon Venerate was their spiritual totem. The death of the extermination demon Venerate was equivalent to despair. It wasn't just them who couldn't believe it. Even the people of the Desolation Palace couldn't believe it. Is this a dream? It's fake. That's the extermination demon Venerate, a divine emperor. Maybe, after all, the extermination demon Venerate had given them too much pressure and trauma. They couldn't recover from it in a short time. Just as the people of the lifeless demon palace were in despair and the people of the Desolation Palace were in disbelief, Fang Qingshan's eyes suddenly narrowed. He had thought that the extermination demon Venerate wouldn't be able to escape this move of his. However, the reality was that the extermination demon Venerate looked like he had been torn apart, and his flesh and blood were flying everywhere. But he didn't die. A death substitution technique? Or a spiritual treasure? Fang Qingshan murmured to himself. Then, Fang Qingshan sighed. I really can't underestimate the people of the world. After obtaining the title of the first divine emperor in the title tower, Fang Qingshan was not arrogant, but he was still arrogant. The extermination demon Venerate's move had given him a wake-up call. Even the extermination demon Venerate had such a trump card and could escape death in his hands, let alone the others. The world was too big. Although they had to advance bravely, they had to be cautious. At the same time, he was very curious about Fang Qingshan. Who is this person? Why are you here? How can his cultivation be so powerful? Who are you? With your cultivation, you must not be a nobody. Why are you making things difficult for me? As someone who had already died once, Demon Venerable Extermination asked directly. Since you gave me an accident and a warning, and you're about to die, I can tell you my name. This time, Fang Qingshan did not refuse to answer. Just as he had said, Demon Venerable Extermination's narrow escape from death had calmed his restless heart, which had just obtained the title of First Divine Emperor. Even Demon Venerable Extermination had such a trump card, let alone others. Although the fight in the Tower of Titles was real, it could only be used as a reference. Even if he obtained the title of First Divine Emperor, was he really the best in the world? That might not be the case. Even if Demon Venerable Extermination's combat power was lacking, he might have some strange tricks up his sleeve. For example, in the primordial world, Zhao Gongming relied on the sea-calming divine pearl to defeat the 12 golden immortals of the Chan sect. However, in the end, he was killed by Jiang Zia, who could not even achieve the immortal Dao with the Seven Arrows book. I am Fang Qingshan from the Pangu Chaos world, Patriarch Blood Sea of Desolation. Fang Qingshan's voice sounded lightly. It's him. It's really him. How is this possible? It's too surprising. Patriarch, it's really him. Those were naturally the thoughts of the people in the desolation. I see. Demon Venerable Extermination suddenly realized why Fang Qingshan had appeared and why he had attacked him. Previously, he had thought that Fang Qingshan had also taken a fancy to the land of desolation. Now, it seemed that he was merely seeking revenge. A true disciple of the Dao sect, titled Divine Emperor, First Nirvana Realm. Although Fang Qingshan did not know what they were thinking, he could guess it. However, he did not pay too much attention to it and continued speaking. When he mentioned that he was a disciple of the Dao sect, the people in the desolation finally understood why Fang Qingshan had improved so rapidly. It turned out that he had been lucky enough to join a large sect. However, Demon Venerable Extermination did not care. In the past, he would have been a little afraid of the Dao sect. But now, although he was still not strong enough to compete with the Dao sect, he was not too afraid. It was just a little strange. Although the Dao sect was not bad, it was surprising that they could cultivate a genius like Fang Qingshan. However, what Fang Qingshan said next was like a bell ringing in everyone's mind. Everyone was so shocked that they could not believe it. The title Divine Emperor was not strange at all. It was shocking. After all, although Demon Venerable Extermination had not gone to the title tower, he was definitely not weaker than a title Divine Emperor. Since Fang Qingshan could easily defeat him, no one would believe that he was not a title Divine Emperor. The key was the last 4 words, First Nirvana Realm. Previously, when the Great Path was singing and patrolling the heavens, as long as one was in the infinite void, no matter where one was or what one was doing, the words Nirvana Realm had long been deeply rooted in one's heart. Unfortunately, no one had expected to hear and see the legendary strongest Divine Emperor at this very moment. Naturally, the people in the desolation could not believe it. Although Demon Venerable Extermination felt the same, he was slightly different. He could not believe that he had been so unlucky to meet the first Divine Emperor. It was as if he was destined to die. All right, now that I've told you my title, prepare to die. Fang Qingshan did not know what the others were thinking. Even if he did, he would not have cared. As he spoke, he sent a slap towards Fang Qingshan. Due to his previous failure, Fang Qingshan was a little more serious this time. At this moment, Demon Venerable Extermination felt an extreme sense of crisis. He knew that this time, even if he used the death substitution puppet, it would not be effective. Logically speaking, he should be filled with despair, closing his eyes and waiting for death, fighting like crazy, wanting to drag someone down with him, or taking a hostage, etc. However, he did not. He appeared very calm. Chapter 17:07. This time, the shock that the people of the primordial world experienced was the most shocking in history. But ever since Fang Qingshan returned to the Pan-Gu chaotic world, many things had surprised him. First, the people of desolation were in danger. Fortunately, they had not been destroyed by the lifeless demon palace. Then, they did not panic in the face of danger. The more they fought, the braver they became. The people of the primordial world fought back from the brink of death. Then, Extermination Demon Venerable's cultivation was at the late Divine Emperor level. He had used a brilliant secret technique to break through to the peak Divine Emperor level. Then, there was the death scapegoat puppet, which had escaped from his hands. Now, Extermination Demon Venerable's calmness surprised Fang Qingshan once again. After all, his calmness was different from the despair of a pool of stagnant water. Instead, it was the calmness of a wise man. Does he still have a chance to turn the tables? Fang Qingshan thought, but he was not afraid. Instead, he was full of expectation. This was not because Fang Qingshan had some perverted fetish. It was because he had enough confidence in his own strength. After all, he was the #1 Divine Emperor. Even though he had just been awakened by Extermination Demon Venerable and knew that he could not underestimate anyone in the world, he was still #1. However, first place was first place. It It was just a shock. It was not like they were shrinking back. Extermination Demon Venerable was indeed good. He had a trump card like the death scapegoat puppet. Now, he seemed to have other tricks up his sleeve. But Fang Qingshan did not believe that Extermination Demon Venerable had something that could threaten him. If that was the case, he would not be Extermination Demon Venerable, but a small void thief. Putting all this aside, as Fang Qingshan's palm fell, Extermination Demon Venerable's eyes shot out blood-red light. He put his arms together and knelt on the ground like a two-faced divine emperor performing the three kowtows. He began to murmur piously. His voice was full of resentment and admiration, as if he was weeping and complaining. It was extremely strange and evil. The next moment, Extermination Demon Venerable's magic power was used up like a flood. But this was not the end. Soon after, his hair turned white, and his entire person became dispirited. His fleshly body, vital energy, yuan, shun, laws, and true spirit all seemed to have been devoured by someone, and he instantly became old and decrepit. Following that, many runes of the Great Path rose from his body. In an instant, they converged together, forming a strange formation. Then, beams of demonic black light shot out, creating a huge pulling force on the endless evil energy in the world. At the same time, a dense aura of the great Tao rapidly descended. Seeing this, Fang Qingshan frowned. Not only because of the great Tao of evil, but also because this power was extraordinary. Most importantly, Fang Qingshan actually felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity with this power. Rumble. Just as Fang Qingshan was pondering what this power was and why he felt a sense of familiarity, a voice suddenly rang out. The next moment, the space in front of him suddenly cracked open. The light of extreme evil shot out soundlessly from within. Fang Qingshan's eyes focused when he saw this crack, and he didn't hesitate to activate the Eye of the Last Days to its limits. He circulated his vision and looked towards the crack with the intention of getting to the bottom of it. He didn't know if it was because Extermination Demon Venerable had opened up the passageway, or if the Eye of the Last Days was extraordinary, or if there was some other reason. In an instant, Fang Qingshan's gaze seemed to have pierced through the river of time, and he saw another world. In a trance, Fang Qingshan seemed to have returned to the Blood Sea. However, in front of him, there seemed to be a vast and boundless Blood Sea. In the Blood Sea, there were countless towering mountains, rolling up and down continuously. Ancient trees towered into the sky. They were so huge that it was hard to imagine. The ancient trees that were hundreds of feet tall were almost all seedlings. It was impossible to describe the vastness of this world with words. There were countless living beings residing in the mountains, forests, and oceans. Just a single glance was enough to tell the whole picture. Fang Qingshan was able to discern from their auras that the Tao Will sect simply paled in comparison to them, because there were numerous auras that were extremely ferocious, and an ordinary Go-Demper's mind would be shaken by just a single glance. These auras were extremely evil, and they seemed like the evilest existences in the world that should be avoided. The ocean of blood, the island of corpses, the mountain of bones, and the specter energy. They were as evil as they could be. Where's this place? When he saw this scene, and coupled with the familiar feeling in his heart, Fang Qingshan faintly guessed the origins of this place. For a time, Fang Qingshan couldn't help but feel slightly uneasy. At the same time, he felt slightly excited. The ancestral grounds of the Heavenly Evil Clan. Fang Qingshan thought in his heart. Yes, in the entire world, Fang Qingshan could only think of the ancestral grounds of the Heavenly Evil Clan, the Primordial Devil Sect, the Boundless Abyss, and the Two-Realm Battlefield. And the reason why he was sure that this was the ancestral grounds of the Heavenly Evil Clan and not the other three places was because of that familiar feeling in Fang Qingshan's heart. It was because of that familiar feeling in Fang Qingshan's heart. When he saw this, Fang Qingshan finally understood where that familiar feeling came from. It was because when he first entered the Tower of Titles, he met this generation's heavenly evil saint, the heavenly evil marquee. Their auras were exactly the same, and they came from the same source. After understanding that this was the ancestral grounds of the heavenly evil clan, Fang Qingshan naturally felt uneasy. Although he had defeated 2 God Emperors, he wasn't a two-faced God Emperor after all. Although he had potential, he didn't have the strength. Not to mention fighting the Saint Buddha clan and the primordial devil sect, he wouldn't be able to escape unscathed. Just taking a stroll around would probably cost him his life. And the heavenly evil clan, the Saint Buddha clan, and the primordial devil sect were equally famous existences, and they were all ranked in the top 30 of the Supreme Forces ranking. It was evident how strong he was. Just from the auras that he had sensed just now, there were more than a few that could threaten Fang Qingshan. So at this moment, the best thing to do was to immediately retreat. However, it wasn't easy for him to spy on the ancestral grounds of a powerful force like the Heavenly Evil Clan and spy on the top 30 of the Supreme Forces ranking. So, Fang Qingshan's heart was restless, and he wanted to get to the bottom of it. As the saying goes, a skilled person is bold. His cultivation had already reached the peak of the God Emperor realm, and the next realm was the Venerable Emperor realm. At that time, he would be considered to have truly stepped into the core circle of the universe. So, he was anxious to learn more about the higher level. So, in the end, Fang Qingshan gritted his teeth. Fortune came from danger. He didn't immediately retreat from his heart, and he continued to spy on the ancestral grounds. However, he became even more careful, and he activated the last day's eye with all his might. He carefully concealed himself. He didn't want to alarm the experts of the Heavenly Evil Clan and bring a calamity to himself. Yes, a calamity to himself. Once the Heavenly Evil Clan found out that someone was spying on them, they would definitely not let that person go. Chapter 1708. Privacy was sacred and inviolable, especially to cultivators, because it meant a lot of secrets. These secrets could be their trump cards, or they could be secrets that could not see the light of day. They could also be military maps, city defense arrangements, or, in short, these things would all die in the light of day. Once discovered by others, it would be fine if they had no ill intentions. But if they did and were deliberately targeted, then the situation would be terrible. Therefore, not to mention a top force like the Heavenly Demon Clan, no matter who it was, as long as the person who was spying on them did not exceed the person's capabilities, the result would be death. After all, know yourself and know your enemy, and you will always be victorious. Therefore, generally speaking, cultivation, playing, techniques, and secret techniques were not things that could be easily asked during a conversation, because once others found out, it would be easy to target them. Nothing in the world was difficult for those who set their minds on it. One was unintentional, the other was intentional. The result would be obvious. Not to mention enemies and strangers. Even if they had a good relationship, such as master and disciple, father and son, or cultivation partner, they would only have a tacit understanding and not ask directly. Of course, if the gap between them was too big, then it would be fine. Firstly, the winner was king. The fist was the hard truth. Not to mention spying. Even if they wanted to kill you directly, there would be no reason. Moreover, since they had overwhelming strength, there was no need to worry about spying on them. It was the same for individuals and sections. Therefore, once the Heavenly Demon Clan found out that Fang Qingshan was spying on their ancestral land, he would probably be hunted down by the Heavenly Demon Clan even if he fled to the ends of the earth. Although what Fang Qingshan saw was only the tip of the iceberg, but the result would not change, because this was not only related to the other party's privacy, it was also a matter of face. Just like in the Desolation, the six-eared macaque spied on the Purple Cloud Palace's Hong Jun Taoist preaching through his talent. Although Hong Jun did not directly kill the six-eared macaque, his fate was worse than death. As one of the 4 spiritual monkeys of chaotic world, his talent went without saying. Just look at Yuan Hong, Sun Wukong, and Wu Zhiqi. Moreover, he was born the earliest, before Hong Jun had even attained Tao. But when it came to the journey to the west, he was only on par with Monkey Sunday. Needless to say, the process was detested by both humans and ghosts. The heavens did not respond to their cries. The earth did not respond to their cries. The Taoists did not accept their cries, and the Buddha ignored them. It was as miserable as one could imagine. Of course, things would be different if they had a powerful background. Unfortunately, Fang Qingshan was not a two-faced god emperor. He did not have a peerless imperial court as his backer. Even when he was being hunted by the Buddha and demon clans, he could still fight bravely and fight back. Once he was discovered, he would really die without a doubt. Although he seemed to be the strongest divine emperor among venerable sovereigns, he was unparalleled. But this was only the divine emperor, not the venerable sovereign. Back then, the two-faced emperor had been so powerful. If the supreme imperial dynasty had not intervened and the devil and Buddha clans had not compromised by not sending venerable sovereigns, he would not have been able to fight them in the future. Even the two-faced deity emperor had to tuck his tail between his legs before he broke through. Only by leaning against a big tree could he enjoy the shade. Needless to say, Fang Qingshan was even worse. Moreover, he was not as reliable as the big tree. Although the Tao sect was quite powerful, the gap between them and the heavenly evil clan and the lifeless demon palace was huge. Any one of the venerable sovereigns would be able to kill them. At that time, not to mention helping him, they might even be implicated by him. Fang Qingshan had only scanned the tip of the iceberg, but he had already discovered a few places that could make him feel threatened. Without corresponding strength, the other party would not care about the rules. After all, it was Fang Qingshan who was in the wrong first, so they would directly send out a crushing force. Putting all this aside, it was unknown whether the heavenly evil clan thought that he was one of them because he had been summoned by the demon extermination venerable, or because the Eye of the Last Days was very mysterious and unparalleled, or because the heavenly evil clan did not expect that someone would be so bold as to spy on them, or maybe there were other reasons. In any case, Fang Qingshan had not been discovered at the moment. Because of this, Fang Qingshan had been very careful at first. Later, he realized that he had not alerted anyone, so he had inevitably been careless. Or perhaps it was better to say that he would run into a ghost if he walked in the dark. Especially at the next moment, he had been alerted by a supreme treasure. In the heavenly evil clan's ancestral land, in the center of the boundless blood sea and the endless corpse island, there was an existence that occupied almost half of the land. It was an altar. One would be completely attracted by just a glance at it. It was made of white bones and sparkled like jade. Its surface was inscribed with a large number of mysterious patterns and patterns. They were intertwined and looked extremely mysterious. The pitch-black runes flickered with an evil light, as if they were the source of all evils. It was ancient and mysterious. And in the center of this evil altar, there were two things. One was a black spear. The black spear was as still as a mountain, but it gave off a faint murderous sound. Clang, 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 clang. One could vaguely see countless creatures fighting and dying under the spear. There were many emperors and even peak emperors. On the surface of the spear, there were countless cryptic, mysterious, and evil runes intertwined and formed. On the spear, an ancient pattern was violently distorted and revealed. The altar was an existence similar to the elven mother tree of the elven clan. The only difference was that the elven clan grew out of the tree, while the elven clan grew out of the altar. It could be said that this altar was the origin and foundation of the heavenly evil clan. As for the spear on the altar, it was the most powerful and ancient treasure of the heavenly evil clan. It had existed along with the heavenly evil altar, and it had reached the peak of level 4. It was the most powerful spiritual treasure that Fang Qingshan had ever seen. Of course, apart from the everlasting lotus, Fang Qingshan wouldn't treat it as a spiritual treasure, but a great creature. Speaking of which, this spear couldn't be used unless the heavenly evil clan was in a life and death situation. Ever since the heavenly evil clan came into existence, this treasure had only been used 3 times, but it had saved the heavenly evil clan from being exterminated every time. The other item was a sculpture of a person. It was unknown what material it was made of. The statue's face couldn't be seen clearly, and it was covered in cryptic evil energy. It looked even more evil than the spear. This person was the ancestor of the heavenly evil clan, the primordial heavenly demon, which was comparable to the demon ancestor. He was the first product of the heavenly evil altar, the source of all evils. He was still alive, and his cultivation had reached the peak of Emperor God. He was one of the oldest and strongest Emperor gods. His name was on the title steel, and it was a purple title. Chapter 1709. Whether it was the spear or the statue. Although they were both filled with boundless evil and were born of the most evil chi in the world. Just like the Yuan-Tu of Vichi's sword, Mosquito Dowrin, and Styx, which were born from the Blood Sea, they were completely different in quality. However, even though they knew they were the evilest beings in the world, and even the Holy Buddha Celestial Spirit Clan was unwilling to touch them, they were afraid to avoid them. But at first glance, they were as white as jade, without a trace of blood or evil. People who didn't know better would think they were some eminent monks or merit treasures. But the more they looked like, the more extraordinary they were. The only thing that didn't change was their aura, which was coquettish, violent, powerful, and majestic. It seemed that no matter what stood in their way, it would be split apart in an instant. One could feel a sense of lawlessness from them, which was suffocating. Even Fang Qingshan felt a wave of aura sweeping towards him, which had a huge impact on his mind and will. If it weren't for the protection of the timeless ark and the all-heaven chessboard, this impact would have seriously injured him and made him spit blood on the spot. One could imagine how terrifying it was. After all, these two things were the top existences in the infinite void, no matter whether they were spirit treasures or living beings. Many venerable emperors, peak venerable emperors, and even titled venerable emperors had died in their hands. They were absolutely ruthless. Apart from everything else, the aura of killing venerable emperors was enough to make people tremble. The martial pinnacle sex emperor slaying saber had been upgraded to a level 4 supreme treasure because it had killed venerable emperors. And only a few had died, and they were all ordinary venerable emperors. Thinking about this spear and this statue, it was really frightening. Oh no! Suddenly, Fang Qingshan seemed to have thought of something, and his expression changed dramatically. Such an existence would definitely feel something when it was stared at. If it came from the same source as them, or if its gaze was sincere, it would be fine. But Fang Qingshan obviously didn't care about any of them. He was shining like a star in the dark night. He was about to look away, but it was too late. Rumble. Bolts of thunder rumbled in the sky without warning. Intense lightning tore through the void. The entire Heavenly Fiend clan's ancestral land was alarmed, and a storm was brewing. A terrifying aura gathered in the void. It contained the majesty of heaven and earth. The supreme pressure continued to gather and increase at an inhuman speed. Who dares to spy on my heavenly evil clan? All of a sudden, the statue on the altar opened its eyes without any warning. There was no emotion in that voice, only a kind of coldness and endless indifference, a disregard for life. Following the vines to the melon, he turned his gaze toward Fang Qingshan. It completely ignored time and space. The timeless arc was like a joke in front of him. At this moment, Fang Qingshan couldn't move. His primordial spirit, will, and true spirit were all frozen, as if someone had used the frozen space-time technique on him. Moreover, the threat he felt was even more terrifying than when he had met the Xing Yi Martial Emperor. Of course, although the Xing Yi Great Emperor was not bad, he was only good. Although he had reached the peak emperor realm, he cannot be compared to the evil old ancestor in terms of talent, luck, comprehension, cultivation, and all other aspects. Not to mention, the Xing Yi Martial Emperor that Fang Qingshan had met was like a dragon in shallow water. Although the heavenly evil ancestor in front of him wasn't his true body and might just be a soul clone, at least he was at his peak and his true body was still there. The two couldn't be mentioned in the same breath. It's over. A thought came to Fang Qingshan's mind, and then he smiled bitterly. Because of the two-faced deity emperor and the exterminating demon venerable, He had long known that the world was not a place where he could move freely. Although he did not need to be cautious, he had to at least be courageous and diligent in his actions, as if he was treading on thin ice. However, this time, he was really too rash. If you always walked by the river, your shoes would get wet. He dared to spy on the heavenly evil clan. Not only that, he even wanted their treasure. Finally, he got himself killed. This was the heavenly evil ancestor. Even if Fang Qingshan broke through to the sovereign venerable realm, he wouldn't be able to compete with the heavenly evil ancestor in a short time, let alone the first divine emperor. Even the sword emperor of the storm, who was the most powerful sovereign he had ever seen in his peak, would have to stay away from the heavenly evil ancestor, let alone him. If all the sovereigns in the boundless void were to be ranked, it was hard to say who would be the first. No one in the tidal steel had ever succeeded in the challenge. However, the heavenly evil ancestor would definitely be in the top 100. Putting all of that aside, when the other party's gaze landed on Fang Qingshan's eyes were instantly filled with boundless evilness. No emotions could be heard from his voice, only coldness and indifference. Disregard for life. His ears were filled with the terrible howl, which pierced through the void and attacked his real spirit. He felt that his mind and will were about to be subverted and dragged in. Fang Qingshan didn't need to do anything at all. He felt that he was about to sink. Fang Qingshan's emperor-level essence, qi and spirit, which had been successfully transformed, was now like tofu, completely useless. At this moment, even the all-heaven chessboard and the timeless arc seemed to be unable to save him. At the same time, the heavenly evil ancestor, who had been startled by Fang Qingshan, saw Fang Qingshan, but he didn't kill this audacious guy immediately. Instead, he couldn't help but exclaim. This was because a scene was projected in his eyes. The first two were the two trump cards that were most compatible with Fang Qingshan, the all-heaven chessboard and the timeless Arkansas. Through the all-heaven chessboard, he seemed to see the boundless void. This was the future and foundation of this Providence treasure. If it continued to evolve, it would eventually reach such a height. If that was the case, it wouldn't be any weaker than the spear beside him. How could this not surprise the heavenly evil ancestor? Of course, what surprised him even more was the timeless arc beside him. Its grade wasn't high, but its combat strength and potential were unparalleled in the timeless Arkansas. Through the timeless arc, he seemed to have spied on the everlasting lotus. Of course, the heavenly evil ancestor didn't try to spy on the everlasting lotus, because that would be useless. It wasn't like no one had done it before. There were even people who wanted to follow the eternal blessing to the primordial world. Furthermore, Fang Qingshan had been discovered spying on him and had attracted a calamity. If he were to spy on the everlasting lotus, the outcome wouldn't be any better, because the nature was the same. Chapter 17:10. Seeing one spot to see the whole leopard. This was what it meant to be able to see the minutest detail. At Patriarch Tian Xie's level, if the difference in cultivation was too great, it was almost impossible to hide anything from him. Following the vines to the melon, he could directly see everything that one had experienced from birth to the present, and even see one's 100 reincarnations, as well as all kinds of changes in the future. At first, when he felt that someone was spying on the heavenly evil clan, he was furious, especially when he felt that Fang Qingshan didn't even have the strength of an emperor, which made him even more furious. If a tiger didn't show its power, they would be treated as sick cats. Had the heavenly evil clan really declined so much that even a mere divine emperor could spy on them? He was simply courting death. But then he was shocked. The all-heaven chessboard was not bad, but it was just not bad. Even if it had extraordinary potential, it would take a lot of time and effort to grow to the point where it was comparable to the infinite void. But the timeless arc was different. With Patriarch Tian Xie's experience, he had seen many eternal-level timeless arc, let alone the eternal-level timeless Arkansas. But even the eternal-level timeless arc could not compare to Fang Qingshan's in terms of the richness of the eternal Tao aura and the potential of the timeless Arkansas. But this was not the end of the shock. Then, the scene changed. Behind Fang Qingshan, many phantoms appeared. The first one to appear was none other than the emperor that Fang Qingshan had met for the first time, the Storm Sword Emperor. The next one to appear was the Dao Will Sex Patriarch. Then came the Xing Yi Emperor. Then there were the Fist Emperor, the Beast Emperor, the Martial Jiwu Patriarch, the Great Qian Emperor, and so on. Patriarch Tian Xie didn't pay much attention to these. However, the astonishment in his heart was not lessened at all. It had been said that in the infinite void and the myriad worlds, it was usually the divine emperors who were in charge and the emperors who were in hiding. It was just like in the desolation, where the saints would not appear unless it was a great tribulation. Therefore, ordinary people, even if they had venerable sovereigns in their sects or families, would rarely have the chance to get in touch with venerable sovereigns and have karma with them. However, Fang Qingshan was really powerful. If one counted with one's fingers, one could not even count the number of venerable sovereigns who would come into contact with him. Then, something that shocked the heavenly evil grandmaster even more happened. He never thought that that person would actually be related to Fang Qingshan. However, the scene in Ancestor Tian Xie's eyes trembled, and a figure was projected. Yes, the person who appeared in the end was the two-faced deity emperor. Of course, in the eyes of great ancestor Tian Xie, it was the two-faced venerable emperor. Two-faced venerable emperor. Just this name alone was enough to intimidate the crowd and cause everyone's expression to change. Fear, deep fear. Even as the old ancestor of the heavenly evil clan, he didn't lack cultivation, treasures, battle experience, and secret techniques. It could be said that he was one of the few who truly stood at the top of the pyramid of the boundless void. However, when facing the two-faced venerable emperor, he still couldn't help but show fear. The reason for this was that after the two-faced venerable emperor proved the way, he fought against the Devil clan and the Buddha clan and fought against the infinite victorious Buddha and the primordial heavenly demon for revenge. Although he didn't defeat them, he still escaped unscathed. How could this not make him afraid? After all, he was just as powerful as the infinite sacred Buddha and the primordial heavenly demon. If they were all like this, he wouldn't be any better. The most important thing was that these were the two-faced, venerable emperors of the past. After 3 days, people would look at them with new eyes, not to mention the current two-faced venerable emperors. With the talent and luck of the two-faced venerable emperors, their current abilities were probably beyond his imagination. Even as an older generation, an old antique who had survived since the creation of the heavens, he still felt a deep pressure. Talented people appeared in every generation, and each of them led the way for hundreds of years. Fang Qingshan probably didn't know that the first time he faced the great ancestor Tian Xie, everything was laid bare in front of him, without any secrets. Even many people related to him were spied on by the great ancestor through karma. Of course, even if he knew, there was nothing he could do. After all, compared to the great ancestor Tian Xie, the gap between them was too big. Now that he was at the chopping block, he was like a fish on a chopping block. What else could he say? The only thing he could do was try not to run into these old monsters before he broke through to the venerable emperor level. Even a timeless arc wouldn't be of much use in front of them. He was completely exposed in front of them, as if he was completely defenseless. This feeling of being naked was really terrible. Of course, compared to being naked, the most important thing now was to stay alive. Unfortunately, this wasn't up to him. Although he wasn't facing the great ancestor Tian Xie himself, like the two-faced venerable emperors, he was no longer in the boundless void, walking on the path of primordial origin. But even though he was just a statue, as long as his original body didn't die, he was definitely different from the great ancestor Dao, Yi, and the Xing Yi Emperor. Didn't they see that although he was already comparable to a venerable emperor, he couldn't struggle at all? That's good. At least dying in the hands of the great ancestor Tian Xie is much better than dying in the Xing Yi Emperor's hands. I'm not a coward, and I've seen the true strength of the top experts in the boundless void. Fang Qingshan smiled bitterly and comforted himself. Just when Fang Qingshan thought he was going to die, suddenly something happened. Lightning flashed and thunder roared in the void. The speed at which the will of heaven and earth gathered was even more shocking, and the pressure it emitted was even more terrifying. Thunder rumbled in the sky. Somehow there seemed to be some kind of mysterious, unspeakable great existence descending. The moment he appeared, the entire heaven and earth turned solemn, and Fang Qingshan felt his entire body lighten. The great way of heaven. Although his body was weak and he was sweating profusely, and he was panting heavily, Fang Qingshan's face showed a hint of joy. Although he didn't know why the great way of heaven had descended, he finally saw a glimmer of hope in his despair. In fact, there were two simple reasons why the great way had descended. One of them was because of him. Fang Qingshan was also a person with great luck. After all, he could condense the all-heaven chessboard to the level of a peak level 3 supreme treasure with his own luck. This wasn't something that anyone could achieve. The amount of luck needed was enormous. Even a great force couldn't prosper without the efforts of several generations. Besides, there was another reason. Fang Qingshan had just obtained the title of the first divine emperor. This was the true protective talisman of his great way. It was ominous to kill, but it was protected by the great way. People had to cultivate, and the great way also had to evolve. If the great way of heaven wanted to improve, apart from evolving the world, it could also nurture more experts to achieve its goal. Since Fang Qingshan had obtained the title of the first divine emperor, he was naturally a reserve. Chapter 17:11. The great Tao had never thought that Fang Qingshan would be able to break through the shackles of the heavens and break through to the 5th level. However, as long as he could reach the peak level of Venerable Emperor, it would be of great help to the Great Way. If he could reach the level of the previous first Divine Emperor, the two-faced Divine Venerable, the benefits of the Great Way would be even greater. Cutting off one's livelihood was like killing one's parents. Severing the path of Tao, the situation was 10 times, 100 times more serious. Of course, the most important thing was that this was the heavenly evil ancestor bullying the weak. Otherwise, the great Tao would not have descended. The great Tao was difficult. On the path of cultivation, a single misstep would lead to eternal damnation. If it had been Fang Qingshan in a dangerous place, or if he had been killed by ordinary venerable sovereigns or divine emperors, the Great Way would never have helped him, because it meant that Fang Qingshan could never reach the peak of the Tao. If it was useless to the Tao, then why would the Tao help him save him? As a matter of fact, there was no such thing as hatred or love for no reason in this world. Everything had a cause and effect. He felt the vastness and majesty of the great Tao. It was supreme and omnipresent. It was as if there was an invisible eye staring at him, warning him not to take another step. The first divine emperor? Great Tao? Unfortunately, Ancestor Tian Xie did not care at all and did not bite at all. If it was someone else, they might still care about the great Tao. After all, once you go against the grand Tao, you'll be abandoned by the heavens and the earth. Not to mention cultivating. Just being plagued by calamities and tribulations is enough to make you come back from the brink of death. However, their heavenly evil clan was an existence that had been abandoned by the Tao. As the saying goes, when the Tao disappears, the demons grow, and when the demons disappear, the Tao disappears. The great tribulation of the heavens and earth was the golden age of the heavenly evil clan. Of course, the most important thing was still their strength. Their strength made them unafraid of the great Tao. Although in the infinite void, the great Tao reigned supreme. However, these top venerable sovereigns could arm wrestle with them. Because of this, if it was just an ordinary situation, they could still give the great Tao some face. However, if it was just an ordinary situation, why would the great Tao appear? It was because Fang Qingshan was the first emperor that made Ancestor Tian Xie even more determined to make a move. As the saying goes, if you don't kill a snake, you will be the one to blame. The Saint Buddha race and the primitive demon cult were examples. Back then, If he didn't care about anything and killed the two-faced deity emperor, would there be any trouble later? Never forget what happened in the past. Therefore, it was better to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots to avoid raising a tiger. Spying on the heavenly evil holy land, die. A cold shout came from the altar. As soon as he finished speaking, the statue of the heavenly evil ancestor raised his arm and pointed into the distance. A black, jade-like finger appeared from the altar without any warning. This finger was like a pillar that supported the heavens. After it appeared, it ignored time and space and stabbed towards Fong Qingshan. Fong Qingshan, who had just heaved a sigh of relief because of the appearance of the great Tao, suddenly stiffened. The most important thing was that he couldn't even struggle. Even if Fong Qingshan tried his best and used all his skills, he could only be as strong as an ordinary venerable emperor who had just entered the realm of sovereign. In ancestor Tianxia's eyes, such a person was no different from an ant, just like an ordinary divine emperor was to Fong Qingshan. Fortunately, at this moment, the great Tao appeared and protected him. Whoosh! The great Tao didn't expect that ancestor Tianxia would ignore his existence like this. After the warning, he still attacked Fong Qingshan without any hesitation. He was instantly enraged. In the void, lightning flashed and thunder roared. Countless laws flashed, and Tao rhyme flowed. A huge golden eye appeared in the void. As the eye appeared, divine chains of the great Tao appeared out of thin air, completely sealing off the channel that had been summoned by the demon venerable extermination. His eyes were cold and devoid of any emotion. Then, an indescribable will resounded through the chaos. Destroy! Then, a bolt of lightning suddenly shot out of the golden eye, emitting a strong aura of death and destruction. There was no doubt that these lightning bolts were terrifying. Even an upper-level venerable emperor would probably die in front of them. However, it seemed that it was still a little bit lacking to deal with ancestor Tianxia. In other words, without 3 or 3, how would they dare to go up Liangshan? Since ancestor Tianxia dared to ignore the will of the great Tao, it had to be said that his strength was really amazing. Buzz! The lightning and the fingertips collided. After a moment of stalemate, the lightning of the great Tao was defeated. Although most of the power of ancestor Tianxia's finger had been weakened, it still posed a fatal threat to Fong Qingshan. However, this time, he did not despair, because he could move. Although it was like carrying the sky on his back, as long as he could move, he could fight. As for whether he could fight for a chance of survival, it was up to the heavens to plan. However, before Fong Qingshan could make a move, at this moment, another voice that Fong Qingshan found familiar rang out. Ancestor, as the ancestor of the heavenly evil clan and a famous top expert in all heavens, why do you have to bully the weak? That's too ungentlemanly. An indifferent voice that seemed to carry a hint of indifference suddenly rang out. It sounded as if it came from all directions, as if it came from a void, like a cool breeze blowing past. The voice was neither fast nor slow. It was light and carried a hint of a smile. It was very polite, as if it was welcoming a strange friend who had come from afar. Following that seemingly polite voice, a ray of light flashed. At first, the light was as soft as a glimmer, but in the next breath, it became intense. It was so hot that people couldn't help but close their eyes. When he opened his eyes, there was a flash of light, and a shadow materialized, revealing the appearance of a young man. At first glance, he looked very ordinary, but upon closer inspection, he realized that it was extremely strange because in the last moment, he seemed to be compassionate, and in the next moment, he felt that his body was overflowing with demonic energy, filled with evil, and in the next moment, he could feel a supreme and domineering aura from his body. As soon as this person appeared, he also pointed out with his finger colliding with ancestor Tianxia's fingertip. After a muffled sound, ancestor Tianxia's attack was finally defeated. However, the person who came did not continue to attack. Of course, ancestor Tianxia did not continue to attack, and the great Tao did not continue to descend. For a moment, the 3 sides seemed to be in a strange balance. The will of the great Tao, two-faced Dizun. After a series of twists and turns, Ancestor Tianxia's pupils immediately shrank to the size of a needle. Although he had seen some clues through the karma line, he knew that Fang Qingshan was not simple. However, he did not expect that something would happen to Fang Qingshan and that the great Tao and the two-faced Dizun would actually appear. If it was just the great Tao, Ancestor Tianxia would not care, but with the addition of a two-faced Dizun that he was afraid of, the situation was very different. He could deal with one of them, but it would be difficult for him to deal with two of them. Chapter 17:12. Patriarch Tianxia didn't really care about the origin will of the Great Path. This didn't mean that the origin will of the Great Path wasn't strong. It was impossible. In the infinite void, there were known existences that had surpassed venerable emperors. Other than the everlasting lotus, only the origin will of the Great Path had not reached level 5. Therefore, many venerable emperors wanted to merge with the Great Path. The Xingyi Emperor had done the same. But the origin will of the Great Path was strong. It wasn't invincible. At least Patriarch Tianxia, the infinite Buddha, the eternal Emperor, the supreme honorable, and the two-faced venerable emperors weren't afraid at all. For one thing, they were indeed strong. Even though they weren't as strong as the origin will of the Great Path, they were still stronger than venerable emperors. Also, as long as you didn't want to destroy the entire infinite void, the origin will of the Great Path wouldn't go all out against you. After all, no one would do something like sacrificing 800 men to kill 1,000 enemies. Even though the origin will had a spirit, it was more rational. After weighing the pros and cons, it was easy for it to endure humiliation. Just like in Desolation, if you wanted to prove the way by force, you had to break through Hongjun Tiandao. It was almost impossible to break through Hongjun Tiandao with mixed energy. But if someone did it, Hongjun Tiandao wouldn't stop them because it meant that the person who proved the way had the power to hurt Hongjun Tiandao. When two tigers fought, one would be hurt. Therefore, as long as you didn't go too far, the Great Path and Hongjun Tiandao wouldn't care too much about you. Therefore, Patriarch Tianxia didn't care about Fang Qingshan at all, even though he knew the Great Path was warning him. He knew that as long as he killed Fang Qingshan, even if the Great Path was angry, it wouldn't be able to do anything. He just had to get through it. After all, a dead genius wasn't a genius anymore. As for him, although the Heavenly Evil Clan wasn't favored by the Tao, it was still a great benefit to the Tao. The heavens and earth embraced yin and carried yang, and the most important thing was balance. Not to mention that there would definitely be injuries when the two fought. Even if the Heavenly Evil Clan was annihilated, it would be a heart-wrenching pain for the Tao. Therefore, Patriarch Tianxia didn't care about the Great Path. But two venerable emperors were different. This person's talent, will, fortuitous encounters, and strength in all aspects were simply rare in the world. Generally speaking, even though it wasn't to say that it favored the ancient and neglected the present, it was generally true. In terms of talent and fortune, these living beings who were born at the beginning of the world were indeed much more powerful than those who were born after the world was created. After all, many of them were tainted with the title of being the first to open the heavens. With this, even the most ordinary beings would be extraordinary. As long as they could survive the great calamity, none of them would be easy to deal with. For example, Patriarch Sky Fiend, Sacred Infinity Buddha, Primordial Heaven Fiend, Tao Father Immortal Spirit, and others. However, if a later generation of living beings could truly rise to power, then that person's talent would definitely be terrifying. Even the beings who created the world didn't dare to take them lightly. They were afraid of them. Among them, the strongest were the two venerable emperors. After all, just the thought of facing off against the top 30 forces of the sovereign forces ranking alone was enough to make one shudder in fear. Not to mention that he was able to attack their sect and retreat. Even Patriarch Tianxia couldn't help but be moved by such a taboo. Plus, he had teamed up with the Great Path. If he didn't do well, he would suffer a great loss. As the saying went, a wise man submits to circumstances. This was especially true for these old monsters. Therefore, even though Fang Qingshan was spying on the heavenly evil, he was guilty of a crime that couldn't be redeemed even if he died 100 times. But after his finger didn't work, Patriarch Tian Xie didn't continue to attack. He knew that if he insisted on attacking, the Great Path and two venerable emperors would attack at the same time. Of course, there was another aspect. Although Fang Qingshan had spied on the heavenly evil, he didn't see any secrets. If he didn't have a backer, he would have killed him. If someone helped him, it would be more troublesome. It wouldn't be a big deal to give up. At most, he would just lose a bit of face. To them, face could be said to be important, but it could also be said to be worthless. However, the most important thing was not the two venerable emperors and the Great Path's will. Instead, he could vaguely sense that other than these two, there was another supreme existence watching this place. If he really dared to attack, there would be a shocking disaster. Patriarch Tian Xie didn't care about the origin of the Great Path. He was only afraid of the two venerable emperors. However, to this expert who was hiding in the shadows and could not be heard or seen, yet seemed to be everywhere, he was a supreme existence in the heart of the heavenly evil patriarch. Moreover, when Fang Qingshan attacked earlier, he actually triggered the sudden inspiration, which posed a great threat to him. This person's identity was self-evident. The everlasting lotus. Patriarch Tian Xie's surprise today was no less than that of Fang Qingshan. First of all, after so many years, there was still someone who wasn't even a venerable emperor who dared to spy on the heavenly evil clan and the altar. It could only be said that newborn calves were not afraid of tigers. Then, after he attacked Fang Qingshan, he actually attracted the Great Path's will and two venerable emperors. In the end, even the everlasting lotus was watching this place. In fact, the reason was very simple. The title of the first divine emperor attracted the Great Path's will. Because Fang Qingshan had defeated the former two-faced divine emperor, the lonely two-faced venerable sovereign had also lent him a helping hand. And for the everlasting lotus, Fang Qingshan was also a unique existence. Just like Fang Qingshan's cultivation, ordinary people, the further they cultivated, the slower they would be. Often, they would be stuck in a small realm for tens of thousands of years. As for Fang Qingshan, the further he cultivated, the faster he advanced. The timeless arc was the same. Not only was he breaking through faster, but his foundation was also getting deeper and deeper. Therefore, the everlasting lotus had praised him many times. The world was bustling for benefits, and the world was bustling for benefits. Fang Qingshan was not only the Great Path's will and the two-faced venerable emperor's hope, but also the everlasting lotus's hope. Therefore, naturally, he couldn't let Patriarch Tian Xie destroy him. Two sides, you also want to be my enemy? Except for Patriarch Tian Xie, no one else noticed the everlasting lotus's gaze. Therefore, he only stiffened for a moment and retracted the murderous intent in his heart. The gaze also disappeared along with it. Patriarch Tian Xie suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. Being stared at by such an existence, even he couldn't help but feel uncomfortable, even though the other party didn't reveal any killing intent. However, he knew that he couldn't attack Fang Qingshan anymore. Not to mention that person, even the two in front of him wouldn't allow such a thing to happen. Although Patriarch Tian Xie had already planned to stop, he couldn't lose face. At least, he couldn't let them see his fear, so he asked coldly. Chapter 17:13. Haha, I wouldn't dare. The two-faced venerable emperor chuckled, as if he couldn't hear the coldness in great ancestor Tian Xie's tone. Of course, with his strength, he didn't need to care. However, great ancestor seems to have forgotten that venerable emperors can attack unless it's a tribulation of heaven and earth, especially against those below the venerable emperor level. Yes, venerable emperors couldn't attack easily, let alone against those below the venerable emperor level. This was the consensus of all venerable emperors in the Great Path. Why were there so few people who could meet venerable sovereigns in all the realms and boundless void? It was as if they had almost become legends. For one thing, venerable emperors were also cultivating, and they were all looking for opportunities and breakthroughs in those dangerous places that ordinary people rarely went, so few people saw them. For another thing, the origin of the Great Path was a witness. All the venerable emperors had sworn an oath that they wouldn't come out unless it was a tribulation of heaven and earth. After all, just like in the Desolation world, a fight between venerable emperors was too destructive. If they were unscrupulous, no matter how big the world was and how vast the void was, it couldn't bear their destruction. If they wanted to fight, they could only do it in all kinds of emperor-level dangerous places, the two-realm battlefield, or even outside the infinite void. Otherwise, if they violated the rules and showed their power beyond that of venerable emperors, the Great Path would punish them, and the nearby venerable emperors would besiege them. Of course, if you acted fast enough and were strong enough, you could solve the problem before anyone could react. Ordinary people wouldn't hold on to it. This time, the reason why the other venerable emperors didn't take action was that they sensed it was the heavenly evil clan. In the face of such a powerful force, it was better to stay aloof and avoid trouble. If it weren't for Fang Qingshan's title as the first divine emperor, the Great Path wouldn't have appeared, or at least in such a timely manner. Ha! Great ancestor Tian Xie sneered. Yes, venerable emperors can't take action at will, but there's a prerequisite. The problem is that I'm not taking action at will. This person offended me first. Venerable emperors, the heavenly evil clan, is too dignified to offend. Hearing this, the two venerable emperors and the origin of the Great Path couldn't help but be stunned. If someone offended them, they would probably make the same choice as the heavenly evil grandmaster. As for Fang Qingshan, he was feeling extremely bitter right now. A single slip may cause everlasting sorrow. This was truly too late for regrets. Even so, since the old ancestor has already attacked once and failed to kill him, I believe that he is not fated to die yet. After a pause, the two-faced venerable emperor said, You can escape death, but you can't escape punishment. After a moment of stalemate, old ancestor Tian Xie's voice was cold. He could feel the silent gaze of the will of the Great Path. However, he could sense that the will of the Great Path was slowly accumulating power, as if it could erupt with a powerful destructive force at any time. The two venerable sovereigns didn't do anything, but great ancestor Tian Xie felt threatened by them. Obviously, to the two of them, no matter what, ancestor Tian Xie would not be able to attack Fang Qingshan today. After all, the two of them had already shown up. If they still couldn't protect Fang Qingshan in the end, it wouldn't just be about Fang Qingshan. It would also be about their dignity. Therefore, the two of them warned that if great ancestor Tian Xie insisted on attacking, the two venerable emperors and the will of the Great Path would join hands to deal with him. Moreover, even if it was the two venerable emperors or the Great Path, he wouldn't be afraid. But the everlasting lotus was different. Since ancient times, those who provoked the everlasting lotus had never lived a good life. In the beginning, in order to break through to the venerable emperor realm, many people wanted to take advantage of the timeless arc to break through. No matter what level of cultivation they had, whether they were ordinary venerable emperors or peak venerable emperors, or even some who were no weaker than great ancestor Tian Xie, none of them had a good ending. Therefore, after a moment of silence, great ancestor Tian Xie made a compromise. Hearing great ancestor Tian Xie's words, the will of the Great Path and the two venerable emperors seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. It wasn't that great ancestor Tian Xie was giving them too much pressure. It was because it wasn't worth it. If great ancestor Tian Xie really didn't back down and gave it his all, the final result wouldn't be good for either side. After all, neither great ancestor Tian Xie nor the heavenly evil clan was easy to deal with. And the relationship between them and Fang Qingshan wasn't close enough for them to sacrifice themselves for him. Now it was just right. Sure, good. The next moment, under the gazes of the two venerable emperors and the eye of the Great Path, great ancestor Tian Xie withdrew his gaze. Then the channel opened by the extermination demon venerable closed. The eye of the Great Path also disappeared. The two venerable emperors smiled at Fang Qingshan and also disappeared. Although they had helped Fang Qingshan today, it was obvious that Fang Qingshan wasn't qualified to make them speak at the moment, unless he broke through to the venerable emperor realm. As for treating them as equals, he had to at least reach the peak venerable emperor realm or have the fighting capacity of a peak venerable emperor. Finally, there's a glimmer of hope. Looking at the three giants who had disappeared, Fang Qingshan took a deep breath. Fortunately, he didn't stumble and fall to the ground. The pressure was too great, especially when he was the one who had to bear the brunt of it. Even if the three of them didn't attack him, even if they didn't even put their energy on him, just standing next to them made him feel pressured. Sure enough, if you didn't see these real giants, you wouldn't know the depth of the world. Although Fang Qingshan had long known that the infinite void and the myriad world weren't simple. After meeting the Xing Yi Emperor, the two venerable emperors, and the extermination demon venerable, he was always on guard against himself. He had to be careful, brave, and diligent. However, it was inevitable that he was a little indulgent. In fact, it was because he had broken through too fast recently that his state of mind couldn't keep up. Fortunately, Fang Qingshan didn't refine the Xing Yi Emperor's source immediately. Instead, he forced himself not to break through to the venerable emperor realm. Otherwise, he would be in even more trouble in the future. This time, although it was dangerous, it was a rare experience for Fang Qingshan. He had witnessed the strongest power in the myriad world and experienced a near-death experience. It was also a great training for his state of mind and willpower. Then again, the reason why Fang Qingshan said that he had fought for a glimmer of hope was that although great ancestor Tian Xie had retreated, the matter wasn't over yet. After all, he had said that he could avoid death, but he couldn't escape punishment. Therefore, Fang Qingshan didn't dare to take it lightly. He quickly adjusted his body and mind. Although great ancestor Tian Xie didn't take action again because of the two venerable emperors, and he probably wouldn't send any venerable emperors to take action. However, the world was big and full of strange things. Today, he had almost died in the hands of the extermination demon venerable. Although it seemed that great ancestor Tian Xie had taken action, the cause was actually him. Chapter 17:14. After all, if it wasn't for the demon extermination venerable, how could he have opened the heavenly evil clan's ancestral land? If he didn't open the heavenly evil clan's ancestral land, how could Fang Qingshan's state of mind be unstable and be tempted to spy on it? If he didn't spy on it, how could he have attracted the attention of the heavenly evil ancestor and almost caused him to be killed? Even the demon extermination venerable had such a method. Although it wasn't his true strength, no matter what the reason was, he had fallen for it. There was no need to mention existences stronger than him. It was hard to guarantee that they didn't have other methods. One had to know that the world was huge and there were all sorts of strange things. This was especially so for a force like the Heavenly Evil Clan that was ranked at the top of the Supreme Forces list. Which one of them wasn't famous? Which one of them wasn't a top existence amongst top experts? This time, it concerned the face of the Heavenly Evil Clan and the Heavenly Evil Ancestor. Who knew what kind of genius they would send out? Don't look at how they usually didn't show off their strength. Even if there were experts, there were only a few on the surface. However, there were many hidden in the dark. It wasn't that they didn't have experts. As long as there was a need, they could continuously deploy troops at any time. It was just that there was no need for them to show off. It was like a god concealing himself. There was nothing better than hiding one's strength and biding one's time. Just like Shaolin and Wudong in the mortal world, they looked ordinary, but no one had ever been able to suppress them. No matter how great the calamity was, they would definitely survive in the end. It was the same here. Since ancient times, they had experienced countless calamities and passed through countless years. However, the top 50 forces on the Supreme Forces list, other than a few who were extremely unlucky, had never fallen out of this rank. At most, their rankings would change. Therefore, even the Demon Extermination Venerable could use an unknown method to summon the Heavenly Evil Clan. As for the heavenly evil clan itself, Fang Qingshan didn't dare to let his guard down. There was only one chance. There was only one life. Fang Qingshan knew that the source of the Great Way and the two venerable sovereigns had come to his rescue. Perhaps it was because of his talent and luck. Perhaps it was because he was still useful. Perhaps it was because the sovereigns had sworn not to act recklessly. Or perhaps it was because of some other reason. However, this was the only time they would act. They were not his nanny or protector. This time, if he still couldn't win and was killed, they probably wouldn't make a move again. This could only mean that he was fated to have this tribulation and was useless. After all, geniuses appeared every year, and geniuses were even more numerous. However, geniuses and geniuses didn't mean anything. Only those who had experienced countless trials and tribulations and truly matured could be considered real gold. It was the same with the two-faced Supreme Emperor. Although he was backed by the Supreme Emperor dynasty, so the Supreme Emperors of the Buddhist tribe and the Demon tribe couldn't do anything to him, the Divine Emperors had come out in full force. If he couldn't survive the siege and was killed, the Supreme Emperor dynasty would have no choice but to accept it. They would never save him. At most, they would find a chance to avenge him in the future. But what was the use of that kind of revenge to him? The dead were all dead, once and for all. As long as it's not an emperor venerable, I have nothing to fear, even if it's a divine emperor from the heavenly evil clan. Fang Qingshan thought to himself as he regulated his breathing. Although he couldn't be arrogant, he couldn't belittle himself either. Although great ancestor heavenly evil had almost killed him and almost cast a shadow on him, Fang Qingshan was a seasoned warrior. However, in the end, Fang Qingshan was also a seasoned warrior. His temperament and willpower were both top-notch, and he quickly adjusted himself. Yes, among the divine emperors, there were two-faced divine emperors, who even he was a bit inferior to. There were also demon venerate, who had all kinds of strange tricks, or there were other demons and ghosts. But he was still confident enough. Even if he couldn't completely defeat his opponent, it wouldn't be a problem for him to protect himself. After all, he was the #1 divine emperor, and he was one of the few divine emperors who could defeat a supreme emperor. This was his indomitable belief in invincibility all the way. He didn't fight for a moment, and he didn't judge a hero by success or failure. As long as he was given time, no matter who his opponent was, no matter how big the gap was, he would be able to surpass his opponent. Fang Qingshan had never been weaker than anyone in his life. Of course, the most important thing was that if his opponent was too difficult to deal with in the end, Fang Qingshan still had a trump card. That was the great emperor of Xingyi's source power and primordial spirit Qi of real spirit sealed in his Dantian and Mud Pill Palace. Although Fang Qingshan had made up his mind not to use these things for a while, especially when he had spied on the heavenly evil clan and attracted the attention of great ancestor heavenly evil, Fang Qingshan found that his state of mind was a bit unstable. But that was just an idea. If a tree moved, it would die. If a man moved, he would live. If he really needed it. So what if he opened the seal? Even if his foundation was damaged, he could release the great emperor of Xingyi's source power and primordial spirit Qi sealed in his body. With this power, he could even drag his opponent to death. It wasn't that Fang Qingshan was competitive, but that if he didn't win, he would die. Moreover, if he lost to someone in the same realm, it would be a devastating blow to Fang Qingshan's belief in invincibility. Even if he had just obtained the title of #1 divine emperor, he wouldn't live up to his name. He would suffer heavy losses. Of course, unless it was absolutely necessary, he definitely couldn't use it at the last moment. As for why he didn't use it when he was facing old ancestor Tianxia, it was because the difference was too great. Even if he used it, it wouldn't be of much help. Not to mention that he had only sealed a portion of the great emperor of Xingyi's source true spirit. Even if it was at its peak, it would still be able to avoid old ancestor Tianxia. As for old ancestor Tianxia, Fang Qingshan didn't think too much about it, and didn't have any thoughts of revenge. Firstly, it was indeed his fault this time. After all, he was the one who first spied on the other party's ancestral land. Furthermore, although old ancestor Tian Xie had almost killed him, he had also truly woken him up at the same time. The great Tao was difficult. He had to maintain a heart that was as if he was walking on thin ice. He couldn't be arrogant at any time. Of course, more importantly, old ancestor Tian Xie was different from the extreme martial sect and the eternal heaven sect. Such an existence could attract his attention just by saying his name. Fang Qingshan didn't want to court his own death again. If he dared to have any thoughts of revenge, there was no need to send anyone else. Old ancestor Tian Xie would kill him. The source will of the great Tao and the 2D Zun wouldn't be able to say anything. Fang Qingshan could still remember the deep gaze that old ancestor Tian Xie had given him after retracting his gaze. That gaze, even if it was just a gaze, could make one feel a suffocating pressure. An expert was just that terrifying. Chapter 17:15. When an ordinary person faced an expert, the pressure that they accidentally released could crush them to death. Fang Qingshan also felt the same way when he faced the heavenly evil ancestor. That feeling was like an ant facing an elephant. If it was face to face, there was no need to make a move. The 2D Zun and the source will of the great Tao wouldn't even have time to make a move. Therefore, Fang Qingshan didn't dare to think about the heavenly evil ancestor at all. If he didn't forget, there would be an echo. Thinking about it, the heavenly evil ancestor would definitely be able to sense it. Judging from the previous situation, even with the heaven chessboard and the timeless arc, Fang Qingshan didn't have any secrets in front of the heavenly evil ancestor. Therefore, he didn't dare to have any evil thoughts or malicious intentions. He didn't want to be caught and killed by him. Of course, he had to learn from others. After seeing the 2D Zun, the heavenly evil ancestor, and the source will of the great Tao, Fang Qingshan's vision and mental state had improved in all aspects. As long as he digested it well, he would definitely benefit greatly. This could be considered a blessing after surviving a great disaster. However, to others, to Fang Qingshan, very few people were willing to enjoy this kind of fortune, especially to Fang Qingshan. As long as he continued to cultivate step by step, he would be able to reach or even surpass the other party's realm sooner or later. There was no need for him to take such a risk. Putting all that aside, from the time Fang Qingshan attacked Demon Extermination Venerable to the time when Demon Extermination Venerable used some unknown method, a passageway to the heavenly diabolical ancestral land was opened. Then, Fang Qingshan spied on the heavenly evil ancestral land and was discovered by the heavenly evil ancestor, causing the heavenly evil ancestor to make a move and easily kill Fang Qingshan. Following that, the heavenly evil ancestor's own chi actually triggered the appearance of the source will of the great Tao. Thunder rumbled in the sky, and when he attacked, the will of the heavens and earth appeared, saving Fang Qingshan. Then, the 2D Zun appeared, and the situation finally came to a stalemate. Then, under the mutual fear, the people who had appeared on stage left one by one. And all of this happened in the blink of an eye. This sudden change was too much for anyone to handle, and they even felt like they couldn't react in time. It was simply too fast. The sudden change was too shocking. To the people of the primordial world, today was really a great day for them to broaden their horizons. Before Fang Qingshan left the desolation didn't have any immortal realm expert. The arrival of the lifeless demon palace had caused desolation to explode. He had witnessed the might of a god emperor. Fang Qingshan's return made them realize that there would always be someone stronger than them. In the end, the appearance of great ancestor Tian Xie, the two-faced venerable emperor, and the origin will of the great path was completely beyond their imagination. As for the everlasting lotus that was hidden even deeper, other than the heavenly evil ancestor, even Fang Qingshan, who had a deeper relationship with the everlasting lotus, did not know about it, let alone others. It was full of twists and turns, and it was thrilling. This kind of experience and knowledge was something that no one would want to experience. It was just like how Lord Yi loved dragons. He could imagine it, but when he faced the real big shots, he would lose his life. Indeed, if one's realm was not high enough, knowing too much and seeing too much was not good for him. It was just like the knowledge barrier in martial arts. Although the opponent was the incarnation of the utmost evil, he didn't really care about them, or perhaps he was afraid of them. Otherwise, no one here could have survived. Luckily, at this moment, they were all gone. The mountain above their heads, the sharp sword hanging on their necks, they were all gone. Everything returned to normal. If it weren't for the deep fear in their hearts, those who didn't know anything would have thought that nothing had happened. Just when most people thought that this was the end of the matter, before they could even heave a sigh of relief, a clear and misty whirlpool silently appeared again. The air was like a curtain that opened to the sides, revealing a door frame that was as tall as a person. Immediately, a tall and slender figure appeared from the whirlpool and walked out. Seeing this scene, the breathing of the people from Desolation couldn't help but stop. Their blood and even their souls seemed to have stopped moving. Indeed, when it rains, it pours. The boat is late, and the wind blows again. This is not over yet. Of course, to Fang Qingshan, it wasn't too surprising. He knew that the person in front of him was sent by the heavenly evil ancestor to take care of him. If he could deal with the other party, then this calamity could be considered a small one. If he couldn't deal with it, then of course it would be over. However, it wouldn't be karma, but his life. Following that, in front of Fang Qingshan's eyes, a familiar face materialized. However, this person was even more devilish than the Azura clan that Taoist one had created. He had a vertical pupil at the center of his brows, which was very different from Zhong and Erlang Shen's 3 eyes. However, its power could not be mentioned in the same breath. One look at it would make one feel like they would fall into eternal sleep. His long hair, draped over his shoulders, dyed with a layer of scarlet red light, fluttering in the wind. His entire body was filled with an extremely evil aura, exactly the same as the aura of the heavenly evil ancestor that Fang Qingshan had just seen. Pure, evil, as if he was the supreme and origin of the evil path. His entire body gave off an aura as if he was looking down on ants. In Xieho. That's right, this person who suddenly appeared was not a stranger to Fang Qingshan. In other words, it was his first time truly witnessing the top geniuses of the infinite void and the myriad heavens and myriad worlds. Back then, when Fang Qingshan first entered the Tower of Titles, the strongest opponent he had met was this person in front of him. Seeing that a new person had appeared, the people of Desolation almost suffocated to death. Their faces were filled with shock, their hearts swayed, and their souls trembled. However, this fear didn't last for long. It only lasted for a millionth of a second, and all their expressions froze on their faces. Because in the next moment, everyone fell into an illusion. Through Fang Qingshan's eyes, he could see that everyone present, except for him, was covered by a dark gray halo above their heads. It was filled with evil, deathly stillness, and devouring all sorts of negative profoundness. At the same time, his essence, Qi, and spirit were all quietly weakened and devoured, like the silent spring rain that had sneaked into the night with the wind. I didn't expect that you would still use the same old tricks when we meet again. I'm a little disappointed. Fang Qingshan squinted his eyes. He knew that if he let them go, the entire Desolation would probably die. So he lightly shouted, "Break!" As soon as he said that, a black and a white light shot out from the gate of heaven. They entangled with each other and slowly rotated, turning into a huge bell. It was similar to the bell of primal chaos, but it was also very different. It rang even though there was no wind, and layers of halos spread out. Chapter 17:16. Other than Fang Qingshan, the others didn't react at all. They didn't even know that they had unknowingly fallen for In Xieho's trick. Even Fang Qingshan knew that the matter with old ancestor Tian Xie wasn't over yet, which was why he had been so careful. In addition, his last days, I gave him an extremely strong detection ability. Otherwise, even though he wouldn't have been able to do much, the people of desolation would have suffered a huge calamity. Dang, dang, dang. Along with the sound of the bell being rung, the death halo floating above everyone's head instantly shattered. To a certain extent, he was impervious to all evil, and no negative effects could affect him. Reincarnation Dao, Seeking Fist, Reincarnation Bell. Since Yin Xieho was using this secret technique, Fang Qingshan would naturally use the same technique in return. However, compared to before, their cultivation base, methods, and divine arts were all incomparable. Back when they were just primordial chaos, these two secret techniques couldn't be underestimated. Now, they were even more shocking. Damn it, I almost died. Who is this person? We actually fell for it unknowingly. We can't afford to offend him. Most importantly, without sudden inspiration, the spirit treasure can't automatically protect its master. The people of desolation, and even the people of lifeless Demon Palace who had woken up. Yes, Yin Xieho's attack was indiscriminate. Everyone was within his attack range. At this moment, everyone looked at Yin Xieho with lingering fear. They seemed to be even more afraid than when they saw old ancestor Tian Xie. Even though Fang Qingshan acted in time, it was inevitable that everyone suffered quite a bit, especially those with weaker cultivations. Those who were already heavily injured earlier were now even more injured. Some of them even lost their lives. Cries of distress filled the wilderness. A large number of people died. This didn't mean that Yin Xieho was stronger than old ancestor Tian Xie. That was impossible. After all, Yin Xieho was considered a rising star. His talent, luck, perception, and opportunities were all pretty good. He was a rare existence in the entire boundless void. It was very likely that he would catch up to the footsteps of his predecessors. But obviously, he still needed a certain amount of time and opportunity to reach great ancestor Tian Xie's level. After all, not everyone was a two-faced venerable sovereign, and even a two-faced venerable sovereign had to go through a lot of hardships to stand out. Speaking of which, the reason why Desolation and the others felt that Yin Xieho was scarier than Tian Xie old ancestor was only because of their intuition. The heavenly evil Grandmaster's realm was higher, and his control over his power was stronger. His gaze landed on him. If it wasn't for the fact that his cultivation had reached a certain level, or that he had some special abilities, in the eyes of ordinary people, he would be no different from an ordinary person. Moreover, in the end, he still cared about his reputation. He had attacked Fang Qingshan for a reason, but if he attacked someone else, it would not only be the two venerable sovereigns and the will of the Great Path who would stop him. Therefore, even though he also exploded with a powerful qi, he didn't hurt anyone. Therefore, even though everyone knew that this giant was extraordinary and beyond their imagination, in the end, they weren't as experienced as Fang Qingshan. Yin Xieho, on the other hand, was different. This was a moment of life and death. After all, although Yin Xieho didn't mean to attack them, he was still targeting Fang Qingshan. However, when the city gate was on fire, the fish in the moat would be affected. Even if it was just a ripple, it would be enough to cause them trouble. After all, this was a peak divine emperor who could even fight against venerable sovereigns. Hee, isn't it just a happy meeting between old friends? Putting all this aside, when the Yin Xieho heard this, he let out an evil smile. Actually, he was surprised to see that the person he wanted to deal with was Fang Qingshan. It's a small world. Back in the Tower of Title, after Yin Xieho knew that he couldn't defeat Fang Qingshan, he immediately died. Then, when Fang Qingshan wasn't paying attention, he used a small trick and left a trace of his aura on Fang Qingshan. With this imprint, it was like having a locator. When they were within a certain range, Yin Xieho would be able to sense them. He had originally planned to attack Fang Qingshan from the back from the outside. It wasn't that Yin Xieho couldn't afford to lose, but he was excited. After all, there weren't many who could defeat him in the chaotic essence realm. There must be a great opportunity on him. If he could snatch it and use it for himself, it would be great. The way of heaven was to take away the excess to make up for the deficiency. The way of man was to take away the deficiency to make up for the excess. It was a pity that Fang Qingshan was lucky, or Yin didn't have the same luck, or maybe there were other reasons. In any case, due to a free combination of factors, the two of them only met again today. Although it wasn't a long time. But after 3 days, the two of them were no longer the same as before. Especially to Fang Qingshan. After all, he had crossed the immortal realm and divine emperor realm. He was no longer that ignorant kid with no background and no cultivation base back then. Didn't you see that even old ancestor Tian Xie couldn't take him down? Then again, if he met Yin Xieho earlier, Fang Qingshan would be in deep trouble. Fortunately, Fang Qingshan stayed in the Dao sect for a period of time and didn't roam around. Yin Xieho was also cultivating in seclusion in the heavenly evil ancestral land. Therefore, he could cross a realm and reach the peak of divine emperor realm from the same peak of immortal realm like Jiangbaoan. If Yin Xieho had to choose between meeting Fang Qingshan or improving his cultivation, he would choose the latter without hesitation. After all, although the opportunity was good, it wasn't like he didn't have it. However, his cultivation realm was his own. Dao was the foundation. Everything else was secondary. Putting all these aside, the reason why Yin Xieho appeared this time was naturally not because he sensed the imprint left on Fang Qingshan's body. That was impossible. Not to mention the fact that Fang Qingshan's aura had become so faint that it was almost undetectable as he leveled up. Just this distance alone wasn't something that Yin Xieho could sense. This time, it was all thanks to old ancestor Tian Xie that he could cross the boundless space-time from the heavenly evil ancestral land and show his true body. Otherwise, even if he could do it, he would have to pay a huge price. Therefore, there were actually two real reasons. Yes, two. First, it was naturally as Fang Qingshan had guessed. He was sent by old ancestor Tian Xie to deal with him. As the current chosen of the heavenly evil clan, the heavenly evil marquis's cultivation base, talent, comprehension, opportunities, methods, and experience were unparalleled. Furthermore, he was an outstanding talent even amongst the previous generations of heavenly evil chosens. In the entire all heavens, within the same realm, whether it was now or in the past, those who could defeat him were as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. Because of this, old ancestor Tian Xie was very confident in sending him out. Chapter 17:17. Due to the source will of the Great Path, the two sovereigns, and the everlasting lotus, which no one knew about, Patriarch Tian Xie took a step back and didn't deal with Fang Qingshan himself. But that didn't mean he was willing to let Fang Qingshan go. He wasn't like the two sovereigns. Being invincible was lonely, and he wanted to train an opponent. For him, it was because Fang Qingshan had great potential that he had to control him. After all, he had already formed a karma with the heavenly evil clan. Although it was not big, but with the mentality of killing the thread in the bud, old ancestor Tian Xie was not willing to let Fang Qingshan grow. Although there might be one more person in the future, Patriarch Tian Xie didn't care anymore. He didn't have much confidence in breaking through the Overlord realm and going back to the Hongmeng realm. And he didn't think that having Fang Qingshan alone would increase his chances. That was why he had sent the heavenly evil marquis, the future son of the heavenly evil clan. Otherwise, he knew that Fang Qingshan was the #1 divine emperor, and he still wanted to get rid of him. Wouldn't sending an ordinary person be like throwing a meat bun at a dog? As for the other reason, it might have been beyond the expectations of Fang Qingshan and most people. This matter had to go back to Extermination Demon Venerable. Originally, after seeing Fang Qingshan's methods, even if he had escaped once with the help of the death substitution puppet, he definitely wouldn't have been able to survive in front of Fang Qingshan. But facing Fang Qingshan, Extermination Demon Venerable didn't show any signs of despair. Then, he used some kind of secret technique to communicate with the heavenly evil clan's ancestral land. As a result, Fang Qingshan's recklessness had alarmed Patriarch Tian Xie, and he had almost gotten himself killed. But that wasn't Extermination Demon Venerable's intention. He didn't have the ability or the guts to order Patriarch Tian Xie around. In fact, He had been able to open the passage because of Evil Marquis. Yes, he was also a member of the Heavenly Evil Clan. Although he wasn't a direct descendant of the Heavenly Evil Clan, he was a subordinate of Evil Marquis. Demon Venerate Extermination was able to rise to power and establish the Peerless Demon Palace without his support. However, because the Extermination Demon Venerable was a spy, almost no one knew about it. Even a Heavenly Evil race and a lifeless Demon Palace didn't know about it. Actually, this was normal. Not to mention the Heavenly Evil Clan, even the Sacred Buddhas, Celestial Spirits, and other clans had their own forces outside of the Mountain Gate. It was just that they were more open and above board. Most of them were developed by outer sect disciples. However, there were also spies like Demon Venerate Extermination. Speaking of which, the Extermination Demon Venerable was Ciejo's subordinate. Hence, when faced with a life and death crisis, the first person he thought of was naturally this master. Therefore, when he first opened the passage, he actually wanted to summon the Ciejo. As for what happened after that, it was naturally out of his control. However, if it weren't for the appearance of the origin of the Great Path and the two-faced Venerable Sovereigns, the situation would have been even better than what Demon Venerable Extermination had imagined. Although he might have paid a heavy price, looking at his current appearance, his entire body had been hollowed out and he was half dead. At least he was still alive. If he hadn't done so, he probably wouldn't have survived a single move from Fang Qingshan. Unfortunately, the heavens didn't protect him. He didn't expect Fang Qingshan to actually survive in the hands of old ancestor Heavenly Evil. As for why he didn't tell his master that he had discovered Pan Gu's chaotic world, it might be because it was inconvenient to contact him, or it might be because he felt that this thing was useless to Ciejo, or the price he had to pay for it was too high, or there were other reasons. But no matter what, Fang Qingshan meeting Ciejo here was indeed like a sesame falling into the eye of a needle. It was such a coincidence. Ciejo didn't expect to meet Fang Qingshan here either. On one hand, his subordinate was killed by Fang Qingshan. On the other hand, it was the old ancestor's order. In addition, he had left an aura imprint on Fang Qingshan. I didn't expect this. I really didn't expect this. Ciejo looked at Fang Qingshan from head to toe and shook his head. He didn't expect to meet Fang Qingshan here. He also didn't expect that the number 1 Divine Emperor, Fang Qingshan, was actually an old friend. But it's fine. I haven't gone to the Tidal Tower yet. But as long as I defeat you, I will be the new number 1 Divine Emperor. Ciejo had broken through to the peak of Divine Emperor, just like Fang Qingshan. It hadn't been long, so he didn't go to fight for the title. Originally, he wasn't convinced when Fang Qingshan announced his name on the Great Tao and toured the world. There was no first place in literature and no second place in martial arts. He naturally wasn't willing to be under someone else. Now that they had met, it gave him a chance to prove himself. Moreover, whether it was for public or private reasons, or because of the elder ancestor's order, he had to fight Fang Qingshan. I was able to suppress you in the primordial chaos realm back then. It's even more impossible for you to defeat me now. Hearing this, Fang Qingshan said confidently. Although he was wary of the Heavenly Evil Clan, Fang Qingshan had completely relaxed after knowing that it was the Enchantment Marquis. This wasn't to say that Ciejo was weak. Just the fact that he was sent out by the old ancestor of Heavenly Evil showed that those old fellows' eyesight was not bad. However, because Fang Qingshan had defeated the Ciejo Marquis before, he naturally had an overwhelming advantage over his opponent. Is that so? Then let's see. Ciejo sneered. He admitted that Fang Qingshan was not simple, but he didn't know that times had changed. Back then, he was a step behind, but this time he would definitely be able to wash away his shame. He didn't believe that with his talent and luck, coupled with the backing of the Heavenly Evil Clan, he couldn't compare to Fang Qingshan. There was no lack of dragons and snakes in the grass. However, there were very few who could truly make a name for themselves. And so what if there was a true dragon inside? Could it be that he thought his dragon-slaughtering saber was unfavorable? This time, he could settle the old and new karma at the same time. As long as he defeated Fang Qingshan, his road to breaking through to the Emperor Venerable realm would become smooth. As soon as he finished speaking, the entire chaotic world fell silent. An unprecedented pressure swept across the entire place. Those below the primordial chaos realm couldn't stand it and fainted. Those who were injured were even more injured, and some unlucky ones even died directly. Not to mention those below the primordial chaos realm. Even those below the immortal realm felt as if they were carrying the blue sky on their backs. They hunched their bodies and gasped for breath. Even Hong Jun and the others retreated again and again, and the treasures in their hands were activated with all their might. Just the aura alone was enough to make others unable to stand it even before they started fighting. If they started fighting, once they were swept by the aftermath, they would definitely die. Hutu and the others were no exception. As for Demon Venerable Extermination, his current situation was not any better. Seeing this, Fang Qingshan frowned slightly. Let's fight in the void. Chapter 17-18. When deities fight, mortals suffer. To the people of desolation, today was a day full of misfortune. First, they faced the attacks of the lifeless demon palace. Although they didn't collapse, they had a hard time holding on. Then, there were waves of accidents. They gave them hope, but they were disappointed in the blink of an eye. The Dao soldiers solved their predicament, but they attracted the demon extermination venerable, Fang Qingshan, and the heavenly evil great ancestor. Due to the two venerable sovereigns and the will of the great path, the heavenly evil great ancestor retreated, and now the In Xieho came. Different from old ancestor Tian Xie, In Xieho used an area of effect attack. If it wasn't for Fang Qingshan, they wouldn't even know how they died. Now, the two of them were just confronting each other. Just their aura alone was enough to make them unable to breathe. If they really fought, no one would be able to survive. Even the entire Pan-Gu chaotic world would be destroyed. When the city gate is on fire, the fish in the moat will be affected. Luckily, Fang Qingshan was still concerned about the people of desolation. Therefore, he suggested going to the boundless void to fight. All right, In Xieho nodded when he heard it. It wasn't because he had a merciful heart. If that was the case, he wouldn't have attacked indiscriminately the moment he stepped onto the stage. However, the two of them would definitely not hold back in their fight against Fang Qingshan. If they were to go all out, the destruction of the entire primal chaos would be inevitable. But fighting was fun for a while, but the karma afterward would be fatal. After all, even though he was the holy son of the heavenly evil race and was extremely evil, the karma of destroying a chaos world and implicating the living beings of that chaos world was more than enough for him to suffer. Plus, if he could defeat Fang Qingshan, the Pan-Gu chaotic world would be his spoils of war. A newly born chaotic world was extremely valuable. Even In Xieho couldn't ignore it. At least, he couldn't destroy it just like that. Otherwise, it would be a waste of resources. Let's go. Having made up his mind, In Xieho did not hesitate at all. Both of his hands tore the space in front of him apart, revealing the pitch-black sky. He took a step forward and disappeared in an instant. He was not worried that Fang Qingshan would run away. If this karma was not settled, it would be useless even if he ran to the ends of the earth. Moreover, the monk could run, but the temple could not. Unless Fang Qingshan didn't care about the desolation and Dao will sect at all. If that was the case, it would be a huge blow to Fang Qingshan's cultivation. After all, cultivation was also about cultivating the mind, deceiving the world, covering the sun and the sky. But in the end, he couldn't deceive his own heart. Just as In Xieho thought, Fang Qingshan didn't plan to escape at all. Fang Qingshan nodded at Hutu and the others. Then he tore a hole in front of him and instantly appeared in the void. As for the primal chaos barrier and the world array, in their eyes, it was as if he did not exist. At their level, even the Dao will Sect's mountain guarding array might not be able to trap them, let alone the one in front of them. Arriving in the void, Fang Qingshan and In Xieho had nothing to worry about and completely released their qi. In the void, Fang Qingshan and In Xieho were facing each other. None of them made a move immediately. Instead, they were sizing each other up. Firstly, they knew that the other party was not to be trifled with. One was the number one god emperor, and the other was the saint son of the heavenly evil clan. Techniques, treasures, and experience were the cream of the crop. Looking at the past and future eras, it was extremely rare to find someone who could be compared to them. Therefore, they had to give it their all. Therefore, everyone was accumulating their qi, hoping to strike with lightning speed. Although Fang Qingshan had defeated Yin Xieho before and had an advantage in his heart, he still didn't dare to underestimate his opponent. Firstly, he had already suffered a loss in his state of mind. Naturally, he wouldn't make the same mistake again and again. Moreover, after 3 days of separation, one would have to look at someone in a different light, let alone a genius like Yin Xieho. Even a lion would use its full strength to fight a rabbit. To Yin Xieho, although he wasn't happy that Fang Qingshan had obtained the title of the number one Shenhuang. But at the same time, he knew that his reputation wasn't just for show, especially since this person was able to defeat him a long time ago. Needless to say, Yin Xieho had taken over the title of the number one Shenhuang from two Shenhuang. Therefore, although he wanted to defeat Fang Qingshan, he didn't dare to relax at all. Therefore, the two released their qi and sized each other up. They wanted to see if the other party had any flaws. Although the chances were slim, what if? In a fight between experts, especially those who were of similar strength, victory or defeat could be determined by a single detail. Moreover, only by knowing oneself and one's enemy could one emerge victorious. For a moment, the vertical eye between Fang Qingshan's brows opened wide. A ray of light shot out and enveloped Yin Xieho. However, it couldn't get within 3 meters of him. In his eyes, Yin Xieho's aura was illusory and difficult to grasp. It was like looking at flowers in the mist or the moon in the water. If he wanted to pry further, a fierce killing intent would instantly soar into the sky. A spear pierced through the void. Although the last days I was powerful, Yin Xieho's spear was obviously not easy to deal with. It was impossible for him to pry further. Coincidentally, it was the same. When Fang Qingshan used the last day's eye to pry, Yin Xieho also opened his third eye. In Yin Xieho's eyes, Fang Qingshan was the same. Fang Qingshan's entire body seemed to be enveloped by a thin layer of mist. Once he tried to pry further, a timeless arc would appear in the sky and suppress him. A pearl floated in the sky and transformed into a mirage to conceal him. A thin line swam like a dragon and severed karma. Both of their auras were connected. Even though they didn't make a move, it was still surging and changing unpredictably. Cracking sounds could be heard coming from the surrounding void. Obviously, it couldn't bear the burden. The void was like a mirror, but it was like a spider web. Numerous long and narrow cracks appeared, and an astonishing tearing force could be felt. If an ordinary god emperor were to face such a scene, he would probably be in serious trouble. Rise. It was unknown if the aura alone wasn't enough to satisfy the two of them, or if the two of them had accumulated their aura to a certain extent. At a certain moment, Fang Qingshan and Yin Xieho revealed their true bodies at the same time. Fang Qingshan naturally revealed his myriad heavenly bodies. At this moment, Fang Qingshan's height was actually not smaller than the timeless Arkansas. His entire body emanated eternal Tao aura, and his skin was engraved with ancient and mysterious lotus-like brands. 1 side, 2 sides, 3 sides. Countless worlds floated up in the surroundings, and they revolved with Fang Qingshan at the center. For a time, a myriad of phenomena appeared. A strange fragrance emanated from space, and it was like the fragrance of a lotus that refreshed the mind. However, it also carried the vast might of the heavens like heavenly lightning, and it was like a supreme god had descended into the world. Chapter 17-19. The monster race had their original bodies. The Wu people had their Zhu Wu real body. The Buddhists had their golden bodies, and the Taoists had their avatars. Even though Fang Qingshan started off as a mortal, he was still able to cultivate to his current level. But he cultivated essence, energy, and spirit, so his physique naturally had a corresponding avatar. All Heaven's true body. This was the true body that he obtained after successfully cultivating the All Heavens Tao verification technique's physique refining technique. When this true body appeared, it was as if a myriad of worlds were surrounding it. Putting everything else aside, just this defensive power alone was enough to make others gasp in awe. As for defensive power, it was naturally not weak either. Every move it made was accompanied by the heavens. Plus, his heavens were not like the 24 heavens of Daipankara, but the heavens of the myriad of worlds. Compared to Feng Qingshan's all heavens, Yin Xieho did not pale in comparison. In fact, he was even stronger. What he manifested was naturally his absolute evil holy body. This absolute evil holy body was not created by him. It was a body that belonged to the heavenly evil clan, just like the monster race and the Wu people's true body. After the heavenly evil clan was born, they sensed the source of the great Tao and formed a physique that could follow the laws of heaven and earth. After revealing the holy body, they were considered to be the strongest, and it was easier for them to cultivate. But this body looked illusory and real at the same time. On the surface of his body, there were hideous and evil demonic marks. These demonic marks were like black eyes, densely packed and gathered together. It looked extremely evil, not to mention the monstrous evil energy that he carried with him. Even though his third eye was not open, his pupils were enough to send chills down one's spine. It was pitch black and contained the evilest aura in the world. As for Feng Qingshan's heavenly true body, although it wasn't bad, it was ultimately created by Feng Qingshan. Due to his cultivation and experience, it naturally couldn't be compared to the heavenly evil clan's main body, which was born from the yin and evil qi of the world. Fortunately, Feng Qingshan's all heaven's true body was not only the physique refining technique that he created, but also the eternal divine marrow that was infused with the eternal blessing. Therefore, his body emitted eternal Tao rhymes. There were green lotuses engraved on his skin, and eternal divine power surged in his bone marrow. They were evenly matched. In terms of aura and true body, the two were equally matched. Kill. After Feng Qingshan and the Yin Xieho revealed their true forms, their bodies were overflowing with an aura that was as vast as the mountains and as vast as the oceans. The aura of the vicissitudes of time circulated around them, and the holy aura was like a heavenly river flowing in reverse. At a certain moment, it was unknown whether it was because the two of them had accumulated their power to the peak, or because they had seen through each other's flaws, or because it was useless to continue waiting, or for some other reason. The two of them attacked almost at the same time. The Yin evil Marquis twisted his wrist, and a clanging sound could be heard. Then a long spear appeared in his hand. There was an extremely evil aura circulating on the spear shaft, and a terrifying sharp aura emanated from the tip of the spear. Before the spear had even moved, the space around it had already become like a spider web, with dozens of silver-white cracks appearing on it. There were also many mysterious and evil runes engraved on the spear shaft. This object was none other than the extreme, demonic spear for back then. This object was already a rank 3 supreme treasure back then, but it was sealed because the Yin Xieho's cultivation wasn't high enough. Now, the seal was naturally removed. Furthermore, after years of nurturing by the Yin Xieho, along with the potential of the extreme Yin demonic spear, it had reached the peak of rank 3 even though it hadn't reached rank 4. In fact, it was even stronger than the peak rank 3 supreme treasure, the heaven-splitting axe. After all, the Yin Xieho's spear was the strongest and most ancient supreme treasure of the heavenly evil clan. It was a peak rank 4 supreme treasure that existed alongside the heavenly evil altar. As long as the Yin Xieho's cultivation broke through to the Emperor realm, the spear would rise along with him and break through to rank 4. Furthermore, it would be more powerful than an ordinary rank 4 supreme treasure, and its potential would also be greater. This item could grow together with the Yin Xieho. Even if the Yin broke through to the peak Emperor realm in the future, he wouldn't need to change his weapon. It wouldn't be a problem for this item to grow to the same level as the Yin with the spear in his hand. The tip of the spear pointed towards the ground. The tip of the spear was dragged in the void, creating some sparks. The Yin fixed his gaze on Fang Qingshan and walked towards Fang Qingshan step by step. He wasn't walking fast, but he seemed to be able to reach Fang Qingshan. His footsteps were extremely steady, and the sound of his footsteps was like the beating of a drum, beating on Fang Qingshan's heart. Although the Yin speed didn't seem fast, he still arrived in front of Fang Qingshan in just a few steps. He didn't care about the myriad world void around Fang Qingshan at all. The spear was pointed towards the direction where Fang Qingshan's true body was. The blood-red and pitch-black extreme Yin demonic spear drew a deep mark in front of him and turned into a ray of light, aiming at Fang Qingshan's true body. This spear was just a simple spear, but it was like a big move. The Yin energy in the entire void gathered and formed a huge storm. The storm gathered on the tip of the extreme Yin demonic spear along with the roar of a dragon. A scarlet killing intent flickered like a living being, and it seemed like it was going to materialize. It made people feel that there was an endless amount of evil Yin and Yin inside the spear. Seeing the spear, one's soul trembled. If an ordinary God Emperor were to face this spear, they would probably be motionless and wouldn't even know what happened to them. Good timing. Seeing the spear and the rolling demonic Fang Qingshan wasn't shocked or angered. He acted as if it was nothing and sent a palm strike over. That iron spear could intimidate others, but how could it possibly intimidate Fang Qingshan? The extreme Yin demonic spear was indeed powerful, but Fang Qingshan's physique was already at the Emperor level, which was not any weaker than these treasures. The spear skill performed by Yin looked very ordinary, but it was very simple. Although it was powerful, how could Fang Qingshan's skills be looked down upon? After fighting with the two Emperor Venerables, it had already formed its own system. Although it wasn't as powerful as other divine skills, it was definitely the most suitable for him. There wasn't the most powerful divine skill in the world, only the divine skill that was most suitable for him. The reincarnation Tao Seeking Fist was the most suitable divine skill for Fang Qingshan. The other divine skills in his hands could at most exert 100% of their power, and some of them couldn't even exert their full power. After all, there were very few people who could cultivate a divine skill to the level of its creator. It wasn't that there weren't any new divine skills, but at that time, would the divine skill still be the original divine skill? Therefore, generally speaking, only the divine skills created by oneself could exert the greatest effect in the hands of the original divine skill. The reincarnation Tao Seeking Fist was naturally created by Fang Qingshan, and it was the most suitable divine skill for him to exert 120% or even more power. Chapter 17:20. Of course, this did not mean that the divine ability created by oneself was more powerful than those created by others. It also depended on the grade of the divine ability. For example, if the Shura Sovereign created a cultivation technique, it would naturally be the most suitable for him. It would also allow him to completely or even surpass his own divine ability. However, if he cultivated the Mosquito Taoist Theurgy, it was obvious that if he could cultivate it to a certain realm, the power he could display would not be inferior to the Mosquito Taoist Theurgy. In the end, things like divine abilities and cultivation techniques, even if they were suitable for oneself, would change depending on the situation. It depended on one's experience and foundation. Just like the reincarnation Tao Querying Fist, it was indeed suitable for Fang Qingshan, and it was also able to display his battle prowess as much as possible. But if he learned the advanced divine ability of the two-faced divine emperor, how powerful would it be? It would probably not be weaker than the divine ability of the timeless Arkansas. Of course, this time, when Fang Qingshan faced Yin Xieho's attack, He did not use a specialized offensive divine ability like the Death Scythe, chaotic demonic horn, or the thunderclap flag. Instead, he used the reincarnation Tao querying fist, red lotus of fire. Boom! Following the descent of Fang Qingshan's palm, a rumbling sound suddenly resounded across the heavens and earth. In the next instant, lotus flowers blossomed one after another. It was truly a scene of endless green lotus leaves, while the lotus flowers that reflected the sun were exceptionally red. That's right. It wasn't just red, it was a scarlet red, a bewitching red. Hot, scorching, irresistible heat. Because these lotus flowers were formed from the boundless karmic fire. It could ignore defense and directly attack one's essence, chi, and spirit. In the heavens, if one were to ask what fire ranked first, it would be difficult to tell. It was just like asking who was the #1 expert in the world. Even if Fang Qingshan was the #1 divine emperor, was he really invincible among the divine emperors? That might not be the case. Then again, although it was unknown which flame was the most powerful, the sacred flame of virtue, the flame of wisdom, and the flame of inheritance were undoubtedly the best, and the karmic fire was no exception. In the heavens, apart from the sacred body of virtue, there were very few physiques or divine abilities that could defend against it, because as long as there was karmic fire, it would be ignited. Of course, this didn't mean that the karmic flame was invincible. Just like there was no best divine ability, there was only the most suitable divine ability. Similarly, there was no most powerful divine ability, there was only the most powerful person. Even so, the hellfire was not necessarily weak. Red lotuses of hellfire seemed to sweep out from nothingness. They were indescribably tyrannical. When the terrifying evil aura collided with the hellfire, not only did it not break apart the sea of lotuses, but it was like the wind was fueling the fire, and the fire was borrowing the might of the wind, becoming the flame retardant of the hellfire. When it saw the evil aura, the hellfire was like an old cat that had smelled blood. It soared 3 feet into the air. Under the attack of the hellfire, the evil aura wrapped around the ultimate evil spear was rapidly burned and evaporated. Of course, the reason why the red karmic fire lotus had such power wasn't because the Sieho was weak. Instead, it was because the karmic fire just happened to counter his divine art. If merit could purify all evil, then karmic fire could devour and burn all evil. Using evil chi and devil chi to deal with karmic fire was like throwing a meat bun at a dog. It was a one-way trip. In terms of evil, there weren't many in the world that could match the power of the heavenly evil clan. This kind of evil energy was just like the hellfire and karmic fire. It would cause one's expression to change and avoid it. The heavenly evil clan was different from the other clans. As an existence that was about to enter the top 20 on the Sovereign Forces board, even those in the top 20 wouldn't want to provoke them. The reason why they didn't want to provoke them was because the evil energy left behind by the heavenly evil clan would be hard to get rid of. It was like maggots on the bones. It was similar to the battle between Fang Qingshan and the 2 deity emperors. Even the tidal tower couldn't isolate this kind of energy. From this, one could see how evil and strange it was. It was a pity that this kind of evil and strange energy was countered by the hellfire. Using it to deal with the hellfire would not only fail, but it would also increase the might of the hellfire. It was an act of aiding the enemy. This was the Sieho. Although his heavenly evil energy was countered by the hellfire, it had already reached the stage where extreme gave birth to Yang. In other words, although it was evil in nature, it had already transformed into a divine energy. With the help of the extreme demonic spear, it wasn't defeated so quickly. But even so, it was still countered by the hellfire. The might of the hellfire was weakened. When one reached the level of Fang Qingshan and Sieho, the gap between them wasn't that huge. Victory and defeat were usually decided by a thin line. When the power of the divine ability was weakened, the result would be obvious. In an instant, the spear was like a dragon, creating a diversion. Sometimes it would soar in the sky, and sometimes it would hide in the abyss. It looked extremely ferocious, like the monkey sun wreaking havoc in the heavens. However, although the lotuses seemed to be bashful, when they clashed with the spear, a loud metallic sound was heard. The blooming lotuses were like bloodthirsty mouths. Although the Insieho didn't lose, and they were evenly matched, his heart sank and his expression changed. The spear was like a dragon, but when it landed on the lotuses, it was as if it had fallen into a swamp. After all, the defense of the red Hellfire Lotus wasn't weak. The current red Hellfire Lotus wasn't any weaker than the Creation Green Lotus. Its defense was so strong that it wouldn't be a problem to say that it was invincible. Therefore, the spear was surrounded by the dazzling red lotuses. No matter how hard he attacked, he couldn't break through the sea of lotuses. More importantly, the evil energy on the spear was burned and evaporated by the flames on the lotuses. Not only that, the hellfire was not only devouring the heavenly evil force, but it was also slowly refining the extreme evil spear, fighting for control of the treasures. If this continued, it wouldn't be long before the evil Marquis wouldn't be able to break through Fang Qingshan's defense. Instead, he would be counterattacked by the karmic fire and might even lose this peak rank 3 offensive treasure. But who was the Insieho? He was one of the few holy sons in the history of the heavenly evil clan. He was known as the one who could catch up to the ancestor of the heavenly evil. In terms of talent, luck, comprehension, and experience, he was unparalleled among his peers. Even venerable emperors who were 1 level higher would be ashamed of their inferiority. In the current heavenly evil clan, if he claimed to be the second strongest, no one would dare to claim to be the first. Even some ordinary venerable emperors might not be able to defeat him. In a life-and-death battle, it was unknown who would die. Chapter 17:21. As a disciple of a powerful force, although it was easy to rely on a big tree, the trials and tribulations that they had to go through were comparable to those absolute experts who grew up in the wilderness. The only difference might be that they were much safer. Those in the wilderness would most likely die if they encountered a threat. Therefore, it was extremely rare for them to be able to attain Tao. As for these people, they had all sorts of trump cards and even protectors. As long as it wasn't an overly dangerous situation, they would usually be able to survive. But don't think that it would be less dangerous for their manager. On the contrary, it was precisely because of this that they had to go through more and more dangers. As for trump cards, protectors wouldn't use them unless it was a matter of life and death, especially as the holy son of the heavenly evil clan. Just like the Azura and the Witch clan, as long as they grew up, they would have to fight countless times in their lives. From birth, they would have to experience the battlefield. Who knew how many battles and bloody battles they had to go through to temper their will of steel? His rich battle experience was incomparable to Fang Qingshan's, even if he had the battle experience of an emperor. Even though he had the battle experience of a demon emperor, it still wasn't his. Therefore, at this moment, although he was at a disadvantage and was countered by Fang Qingshan right from the start, his determination was firm and he wasn't affected at all. He thought of a way to deal with it. Haha, if the Taoist wants my spear, just say it. Why do we have to fight over it? Just take it. Insieho laughed. Those who didn't know better would think that the two of them had a good relationship. It was as if they were friends giving each other a gift. But Insieho loosened his grip and gently pushed, beat him at his own game, and went with the flow. Since Fang Qingshan wanted to refine the treasure, he might as well give it to him. Whoosh! Using his body as a bow, his waist and horse became one. He used the extreme evil spear as an arrow and aimed it at Fang Qingshan's forehead. Before the sound could travel, the arrow was already in front of Fang Qingshan. Fast, very fast. Fang Qingshan could only feel a sharp edge. It seemed to be able to pierce through the sky. It shot towards him with an unstoppable and indestructible momentum. It was as if anything that stood in front of it would be pierced through. The spear exuded an indomitable will that could destroy everything in its path. The flowers bloomed to see me. I see everyone. At the sight of this, Fang Qingshan's heart skipped a beat. Instead of releasing his hellfire, he unleashed the defensive power of the red lotus of hellfire. Shua! In the next moment, all the lotuses instantly withered like a short-lived flower, and then all the karmic flames instantly converged above Fang Qingshan's head like tired birds returning to their nests, and they instantly condensed into a fiery red sprout. This tender shoot quickly grew and produced 3 beautiful lotus leaves. Then it bloomed layer by layer. In the end, the flowers bloomed 36 times. For a moment, the red lotus was as majestic as a divine mountain. It didn't seem to be inferior to Fang Qingshan and the Yin Xieho's true body. There was an aura of vicissitudes of time descending from it, as though it had returned to the beginning of the world. Clang! Clang! The void split open, and the extreme evil spear stuck out its tip. An extremely sharp ray of light fell like the turbulence of time and space, slashing in all directions. It landed on the red lotus. However, Fang Qingshan stood under the red lotus and didn't move at all. Although the red lotus swayed and let out a sound as though it couldn't bear the weight, and cracks appeared on it from time to time, it was repaired in an instant, and Fang Qingshan was unharmed. What a great red lotus of hellfire! What a great defensive treasure! Seeing this, the Yin Xieho couldn't help but praise. His extreme evil spear was a replica of the heavenly evil clan's ancestral artifact, a pinnacle level 4 supreme treasure. It was also a pinnacle level 3 killing supreme treasure. Ordinary defensive supreme treasures, even those of the same grade, would be destroyed with a single poke. However, the red lotus of hellfire could allow Fang Qingshan to stand on top of his head, and its defense was unparalleled. How could he not be amazed? Of course, this red lotus wasn't an evolution of Fang Qingshan's divine ability. It was the red lotus of hellfire that descended from the eternal divine furnace unit. Even so, Fang Qingshan was very satisfied. In fact, when facing this attack, Fang Qingshan had another way to deal with it, and that was to use the reincarnation Tao-seeking fist, treasure money. However, although money was the nemesis of all spiritual treasures, its grade was still a little low. It was only an upper level 3 spiritual treasure. On the other hand, the extreme evil spear wasn't just of a higher grade. It was also a replica of the heavenly evil clan's ancestral artifact. It had other uses, but it wasn't restrained by him. Most importantly, the spear came too quickly. Turning the spear into an arrow, it was fast, accurate, and ruthless. Fang Qingshan didn't even have time to use other divine abilities and could only use the hellfire to reform the red lotus. Speaking of which, to the Yin Xieho, although this attack failed again, he wasn't discouraged. He waved his hand, and the extreme evil spear returned to his hand. Again. Because the hellfire had the effect of restraining the heavenly evil force, Yin Xieho naturally had to change his way of dealing with it. His body trembled, and a wave of sound came from his body. A scorching power surged out, and his blood was boundless. He had retracted the heavenly evil force and only used his physical strength. Even so, the power of the spear didn't decrease at all. Seeing this, Fang Qingshan couldn't help but sigh. The Yin Xieho was indeed the Yin Xieho, and he couldn't be underestimated. It was obviously impossible to rely on a single move to dominate the world. The red lotus of hellfire was a defensive treasure after all, and its attack wasn't that powerful. Without hellfire, the hellfire would become a rootless duckweed. As for only defending and not attacking, it wasn't Fang Qingshan's nature. He wasn't someone who would only take a beating and not fight back. It was just that he couldn't be tough for long, and he wouldn't be able to defend himself for long. Especially when facing someone like the Yin Xieho, his last resort was to attack. Moreover, Fang Qingshan was quite confident in his own methods. Even without the hellfire to restrain the heavenly evil force, he could still use his other methods. Kill. Although he sighed in his heart, his hands didn't hesitate. Seeing the Yin Xieho's spear coming towards him, Fang Qingshan didn't dodge. Instead, he used his palm as a blade and slashed down. Reincarnation Tao-seeking fist. Pangu split the heavens. Fang Qingshan had modified this move based on the Panga Genesis seal, and then added on some of his own knowledge. It didn't have the support of the various units of the eternal heavenly vessel. And although the Bell of Chaos had been casually transformed from the heaven-splitting axe, it wasn't weaker than the heaven-splitting axe at all. It was completely different now. It had long since broken free from the heaven-splitting axe's restraints and formed its own lineage. Moreover, it was a bell, not an axe. Therefore, when he used the Pangu split the heaven's axe, he couldn't summon the bell of primal chaos. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.